Chapter 732. Time and space were flowing backward, and the scene kept rewinding. From the moment Xia Jingyu was burned to ashes by the raging flames, to the moment she turned into a fireball and fell from the sky, to the moment she was captured by the Blood Emperor and brought back to the underground ruins, to the moment she quietly died in Su Yu's arms. You must be blessed. Xia Jingyu, who was on her deathbed, used her will to convey the last bit of blessing in her life. Her grip on Su Yu's hand slid down quietly. At this moment, Xia Jingyu's soul was erased from the world. At this moment, time was flowing backward. Oh, is that so? I'm so happy. She fell into Su Yu's embrace and closed her eyes. Every time you treat me coldly, I feel so sad. Brother Su Yu, you must hate me to death. I saw the end of the world, the fate of the true dragon. Everyone will die. Their fates will not be changed. However, these two reversal pills can bring the dead back to life and change their fates. Whoever possesses them will be able to survive this calamity. Therefore, I will leave mine for Xiener. Brother Su Yu, you can grow old together with Xiener. Xia Jingyu had revealed the truth, and before she died, she gave Su Yu and Xiener her deepest blessing. The scene kept rewinding until the Blood Emperor's finger came crashing down. Her beautiful figure was like a butterfly's shadow blocking in front of him. It was this time that he stepped forward bravely and caused Xia Jingyu's death. The flow of time and space stopped at this point. Everything returned to the moment before Xia Jingyu's death. The whole body of the Blood Emperor, who was about to kill Su Yu, shivered intensely, and he finally managed to free himself from the space-time reversal. Horror appeared on his face as he exclaimed, "How is this possible?" Xia Jingyu, who had stepped forward bravely to block the deadly attack for Su Yu, was at a loss. What's going on? Why do I feel like I've experienced a part of the future? I feel like I'm already dead. Xia Jingyu's brows were tightly knitted together. She was shocked. How is this possible? My premonition has deviated. Originally, she had seen the end of the world, a world of silence and destruction. But now, the future that her trajectory divine decree sensed was not destruction, but a blurry state. The future could not be changed. Everything had to follow a trajectory: birth, old age, sickness and death, prosperity and decline. Everything had to follow a trajectory. But the scene before her deeply shook her heart. The trajectory had become indistinct, which meant that the future was full of uncertainty. It might be the same future, or it might be a different future. Who was it? Who changed the future? Xia Jingyu was extremely shocked. Suddenly, a strand of spatial energy surged behind him, and it enveloped him as well before instantly teleporting him 50 kilometers away. Her shoulder was tightly held by a large hand. It was strong, steady, and filled with a familiar aura. She didn't need to turn her head to know that it was Su Yu. Did you do it, Brother Su Yu? Xia Jingyu looked back at him, her eyes shimmering with tears. The familiar face in front of him was still there. His once elegant silver hair was now completely white. Why? I'm already dead. I've already said goodbye to you. Why did the future change? Xia Jingyu couldn't understand. She stared at the face in front of her. Su Yu extended his palm and gently touched the face in front of him. His palm trembled slightly, as he was afraid that this was just an illusion. The smooth, jade-like feeling was transmitted to his palm. It was real, and time and space had successfully reversed. Xia Jingyu was back. Su Yu's heart trembled, and his inner world, which was on the verge of collapse, was restored once again. Welcome back. Su Yu's voice was choked with emotion as he extended his arms and embraced Xia Jingyu tightly. It was as if he was afraid of losing her once again. Xia Jingyu was caught off guard, and she was almost suffocated by his embrace. However, she didn't feel any pain, and she only felt tears of joy. She felt as if she and Su Yu had been separated for countless centuries. Brother Su Yu. The sadness and joy in her heart turned into tears, which flowed out of her eyes. Her delicate body lay in Su Yu's embrace as she wept loudly. Su Yu felt at ease. Everything could be salvaged. A ball of silver light appeared in his palm, and he calmly extracted the deadly poison from Xia Jingyu's body. The whole world was silent, as if it was silently praying for this pair of lovers, who had been separated by life and death. In the Dragon Abyss, in the Jinlong continent, countless living beings were bewildered. They all had a part of their memories of a destructive palm seal descending upon them, destroying the world and burying them. But now, why did everything return to its original state? Jiao Yuanzhou's eyes were filled with confusion. The King of Darkness was also confused. In the sunken northern continent, at the bottom of a boundless sea, in the Inu area, which had sunk deep into the sea, an old man was calmly standing among the ruins. It was Fan Haisheng. His body was illusory, and it seemed like it would soon disappear. Time and space are flowing in reverse. The ancient god Jilong's power, which controls time and space. Fan Haisheng's eyes shone brightly, while his old face was filled with gratification. My Jinlong world has unexpectedly given birth to an ancient god Jilong successor. It was really the right decision to hand over the world-shaking dragon Baotiyu. His illusory body gradually dissipated, while he looked at Su Yu, who was millions of miles away, and let out a desolate sigh. I'll leave everything to you, Julong's successor. I'm tired, but I can finally rest in peace. As a soft sound echoed, his body dissipated completely, turning into a ball of light that floated in the sea. The body of the King of Darkness, who was millions of miles away, shivered intensely as he looked in the direction of the northern continent. He knelt down on the ground and kowtowed. Farewell, Lord Shen. Have a safe journey. 2 streams of warm tears flowed down his cheeks and fell to the ground. They turned into sparkling crystals as he shouted. At the same time, all of the Jinlong world's people felt as if they had lost something. Su Yu also sensed this, and he felt an indescribable sadness in his heart. It was as if he had lost a blood relative. At the same time, a sorrowful cry echoed in the sky, as if someone was mourning. Many snowflakes fell to every corner of the Jinlong continent. It seemed like the heavens were weeping. Who had passed away? Why was the world mourning? Only the Blood Emperor wasn't startled. Instead, he was delighted. Ha ha ha! Just as I expected. Shin Chen only has a remnant soul left. In the past, he used his own blood essence to recreate the continent's living beings, but the price he paid was his life. He only left behind a remnant soul, which managed to hold on until now. It was only then that I destroyed it, causing it to disappear completely. Shan Chen, who was once the Jiuzhou Emperor, was too powerful. He had surpassed a certain boundary, and Su Yu's space-time reversal couldn't affect him. Even though he managed to reverse time and space, he couldn't bring back his soul. He had perished in the endless space-time river. He had once created the Jinlong continent, and he had sacrificed his life to obtain the Jinlong continent's reproduction. It could be said that all of the Jinlong continent's living beings were his bloodline descendants. This was why all of the Jinlong continent's living beings were grieved by his death. She left Su Yu's embrace and bowed toward the northern continent, then said, "Thank you for allowing the Jinlong continent to continue." As she looked at Su Yu out of the corner of her eye, she saw that he was still standing motionlessly. "Brother Su Yu, aren't you going to pay your respects to him?" Xia Jingyu asked. Su Yu closed his eyes and shook his head slightly. Someone must let go of their grief and take revenge for him. When he opened his eyes, a shocking killing intent engulfed the Milky Way. His gaze penetrated through space-time and looked at the Blood Emperor. "You have exterminated the Jinlong continent twice. I, Su Yu, swear in the name of the Jinlong continent's billions of living beings that I will kill you." A grave look appeared on the Blood Emperor's face when he heard this. "Lad, I must admit that I have really underestimated you. But even so what? The Blood Emperor spoke calmly. After reversing time and space, you will just be destroyed once again. I don't believe that you didn't pay a price for reversing time and space. How earth-shattering was it to forcefully reverse time and space? It was like reversing yin and yang, reversing the cycle of reincarnation. Such a heaven-defying matter couldn't possibly come without a price. As if to answer the Blood Emperor's words, a cracking sound echoed from the back of Su Yu's hand, and a fragment fell off. It was a fragment of skin that had been petrified. After the fragment fell off, the back of his hand was filled with wrinkles, and his vital energy channel had deteriorated. It seemed like the hand of an old man. Brother Su Yu, what happened to your hand? Xia Jingyu covered her mouth in surprise. When she heard that Su Yu had reversed time and space, her doubts disappeared, but she still couldn't help but panic. The Blood Emperor revealed a cold smile. Just as I expected, the price for doing so is your life. He then added, time is eternal and unchanging. It doesn't increase or decrease, and it flows unceasingly in the world. The reversal of time and space in this place must be made up for by some other time, and its source is obviously the person who used it. You used your own time to change the state of time in the region around you, which is why you managed to reverse time and space. After the Blood Emperor recovered from his shock, he explained the principle behind the reversal of time and space. Su Yu was using his own lifespan to reverse time and space. This was the reason why his hand had aged. Yes, what you said is correct, Su Yu said calmly, while his gaze became sharp and cold. But so what? It's enough for me to kill you. The Blood Emperor shook his head calmly. I already said that even if I reverse time and space, so what? I will just destroy it once again. You won't be able to bear the price of reversing time and space too many times, so the outcome won't change. Yes, he could reverse time and space, but so what? If he couldn't erase the Blood Emperor from this world, he would destroy it once again. Even if Su Yu reversed time and space, the outcome would still be the same. In the end, Su Yu's life force would be extinguished, and he wouldn't be able to reverse time and space again. However, the Blood Emperor was too powerful, and he was like a god that couldn't be shaken or erased. Who said that I can reverse time and space? If I kill you, everything will come to an end. Su Yu looked at him coldly. The Blood Emperor furrowed his brows. Kill me? In front of absolute power, all schemes are useless. Fine, I wasted too much time. This time, I will destroy the world once again and kill you along with everyone else, the Blood Emperor said calmly. It was as if he was announcing the Zhenlong world's destruction once again. His afterimage flickered as he appeared in the starry sky once again. He then took a deep breath and used the divine light palm. The starry sky was once again engulfed by the radiance of the sun and moon, while the Zhenlong continent was once again illuminated by a world-destroying light. All of the living beings' blurry memories suddenly became clear. Yes, they had just experienced a world-destroying event a moment ago. Were they going to be destroyed? Heaven, extinguishing divine palm, destroy. The Blood Emperor's voice was as cold as the heavens as he thrust his palm down from the starry sky. Amidst the dazzling radiance that filled the sky, a giant palm that covered the entire true dragon world came crashing down. The world-destroying palm descended upon them once again. All of the living beings who had just experienced a world-destroying event were filled with fear. In the end, they couldn't escape their fate, and they would all die. Chapter 733. Wu Yan's face was filled with bitterness. In the Blood Emperor's eyes, she was just an insignificant ant. Even though he knew that she existed, he still didn't want to save her. He just wanted to erase her from the world. Jiao Yuanzhou sighed softly and closed his eyes, waiting for the world's destruction to befall him once again. All of the living beings were in despair. In front of the godlike Blood Emperor, they could only look on helplessly as they were annihilated. Xia Jingyu chuckled bitterly, and as she looked at the approaching palm print, She unconsciously held Su Yu's old hand. She then looked at him affectionately and said, "Brother Su Yu, your ending isn't too bad. At least, I was able to hold your hand before I die." "That's great." Xia Jingyu revealed a bright smile as she leaned her head on Su Yu's shoulder. Her face was filled with happiness. This could be considered the best ending for her. Su Yu held Xia Jingyu's hand and asked softly, "Are you satisfied with this? You still haven't gone to see the world outside of the Jinlong continent for me." Xia Jingyu was startled and looked at Su Yu in shock. Does he have the power to resist an all creation? Su Yu revealed a faint smile as he slowly closed his eyes. His soul then entered his soul space. When he appeared there, he found himself surrounded by boundless darkness. Su Yu clasped his hands behind his back and said calmly, "Come out." The space was deathly silent and there wasn't any response. "Do you need me to invite you out?" Su Yu's ice-cold gaze shot toward a certain direction. This was the soul space he had created, so how could anyone hide in it? "Ah, what a rare guest. Did you miss me? Did you want to talk to me about life and the universe?" A scarlet drop of blood yawned as it teleported out of the darkness. Su Yu swept it with an indifferent gaze. "Well, I have recovered some of my primordial energy." Su Yu's eyes narrowed as he swept the surroundings. "Does this mean that Venerable Fu Gui's soul was eaten by you?" "What? Eaten by me?" "I am the heretic god who dominated the ancient times." "That's right. I'm an evil god. Back in the day, I devoured the sun, the moon, and the galaxy. I slaughtered the heavens and slaughtered the earth. I was even sent to the heaven-destroying divine emperor. I really killed gods and Buddhas. I ate ancient true spirits every day, slept with ancient spiritual beauties, and played with billions of stars. How could I steal a mere divine master soul?" "Hey, what are you doing? Don't be like this. I'm the heaven-destroying divine emperor, the divine emperor." Before he could finish his words, Su Yu stomped his foot on the ground. "Heaven-destroying divine emperor? I don't think so." Su Yu calmly looked down at the drop of blood. The drop of blood panted heavily. "Don't bully me just because I'm poor. When I reconstruct my fleshly body, I'll definitely destroy the entire universe." "Ouch! Stop stepping on me. I'm just a bag of old bones. Can you take it easy?" Su Yu said coldly, "Cut the crap. I came here to make a deal with you." When it let go of its foot, the drop of blood spun around and started muttering complaints. When it was glared at by Su Yu, it immediately shrank back and said, "Lad, what kind of deal do you want to make? This god loves to guide the younger generation." Su Yu replied concisely, "I want to borrow your power." "Not lending." The drop of blood raised its head proudly and refused decisively. "This divine emperor is extremely powerful, and a single strand of my hair can destroy the sun, moon, and stars. How can I be lent to you?" "Not lending, not lending, not even a hair." "Ouch, you're doing it again. Gentler, gentler. Do you have something to say?" As it was once again stepped on by Su Yu, the drop of blood cried out miserably, "Respect the old and love the young. Love the young, respect the old. Love the old and respect the young. Repeat this 3 times." Su Yu looked at it coldly. "There is a peerless and powerful enemy in the outside world, and if I'm killed, my soul space will sink into an eternal, deathly stillness. At that time, you won't even have a chance to escape, as you will be trapped here forever. Lend me your power, and if I don't die, you will still have a chance to escape." The drop of blood stretched its neck and shouted, "No, I only have a single drop of blood left, and every time I use my power, my primordial energy will be slightly weakened. How can an old man like me endure your torment?" Su Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. Since he had already spoken to this point, how could he not understand that the drop of blood had already relented? "How about I give you a soul to replenish your primordial energy?" Su Yu asked. The drop of blood shook its head vigorously. "No, It's just a trifling, all-creation realm soul, and it won't even be enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. All-creation realm? Su Yu's face darkened. If he could capture an all-creation realm soul and give it to him, would he still need to borrow its power? Moreover, this evil god didn't just want a single soul. I will give you a divine master soul. Do you want it or not? Su Yu stared at the drop of blood. The drop of blood protested. All creation realm. I said, all creation realm. I said, divine master. Su Yu's gaze became ice cold. The droplet of blood snorted angrily. Back in those days, this divine emperor slaughtered the heavens and slaughtered the earth. No one could bargain with this divine emperor. Suddenly, a foot stepped on it, causing it to fall to the ground. Ouch! My little heart almost fell out. Fine, I'll do whatever you say. Divine master it is. This divine emperor is not a picky eater. Su Yu moved away from it and revealed a faint smile. Deal! In the outside world, the heaven-covering palm seal was approaching the Jinlong continent. The ground cracked open, and flames rushed out of it, turning the continent into a sea of flames. Many living beings closed their eyes in despair. In the end, they couldn't escape their fates. However, at this moment, Su Yu, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened them. A pair of deep eyes glowed with a strange crimson light. At the same time, a scarlet color seeped out of his pores. It was captivating red like liquid, as if fresh blood was flowing out. However, there was no smell of blood. Instead, there was a shocking evil aura. The Blood Emperor looked coldly at the destruction of the Jinlong world. He stood quietly in the ice-cold starry sky and looked down from afar. He wore a confident smile on his face, but all of a sudden he frowned slightly, as if he had sensed something. Then his pupils shrank. It's an aura from the same source as the evil aura of the formation. What was that? A treasure or a person? If it was a treasure, then perhaps it wouldn't be so terrifying. But if it was a human, then it would be too terrifying. That evil aura made him feel extremely uneasy. Xia Jingyu was shocked. She left Su Yu's embrace and looked at the blood-red color in shock. Your bloodline of the evil ghost. More accurately, it was the bloodline of the heretic god. Su Yu wore a faint smile on his face and kept a distance from Xia Jingyu, while the blood energy in his body surged out. The amount of blood mist was terrifying. First, it was the ruins, then the Twilight Mountains, then the Xinyu Prefecture, Xinhua Island, the northern continent, the entire continent, and even the endless sea were shrouded by the rolling blood fog. From the starry sky, the blue planet had suddenly become a blood-stained planet. However, the blood mist could not withstand the destruction of the palm print. It did not possess any power, as it could only devour power. Jinlong living beings, I am Su Yu, Su Yu said loudly, his voice spreading throughout the whole world. Valleys, streams, mountain peaks, forests, caves, cities, houses. Su Yu's voice could be heard from every corner of the world. All living beings were shocked. Su Yu was the Heavenly Law Alliance Master. He was the king who had saved the Jinlong continent in the past. At the juncture of extinction, all sounds were silent, and only Su Yu's voice was transmitted to every corner of the world. The whole world was listening to Su Yu's voice. The Jinlong world has been destroyed twice. The first time was by the Jiuzhou Emperor, who sacrificed his life to allow you to continue living. The second time was when I reversed the flow of time and space, which gave you a short respite. Why were we destroyed so many times? Su Yu questioned him. This was a question that lingered in everyone's hearts. Why did they always encounter such a crisis? It was because we were silent. When a powerful enemy destroyed the world, we were powerless. So we kept silent and waited for our destruction. It was because we were too weak. When the world was destroyed, we didn't do anything. We just closed our eyes in despair. Su Yu's words shook the hearts of all living beings. When despair descended upon them, they really didn't resist. They really didn't do anything because their enemy was too powerful. Now, when the world is destroyed once again, do you still want to keep silent? Do you still want to close your eyes and wait for someone else to decide your fate? Suyu asked in a loud voice. The hearts of countless living beings were shaken. They had never tried to resist because they couldn't. If you don't explode in silence, then you will die in silence. Do you still want to continue being the souls of a destroyed country and the slaves of death? The people in the dragon abyss clenched their fists tightly. They didn't want to. When the people of the continent raised their heads and looked at the sky, their eyes were burning. They didn't want to. The ferocious beasts in the forest roared angrily at the sky. They didn't want to. Since you don't want to, then fight with me. This time, we won't rely on the Jojo Emperor, nor will we reverse the flow of time. We will use our own power to create a new future for the Jinlong world. Suyu shouted. Regardless of whether you are a human or a beast, whether you are a bird or a beast, whether you are a flower or a tree, whether you are a river or an ocean, please lend me your power. As his voice echoed out, the blood fog that engulfed the whole planet descended and engulfed all living beings. Regardless of whether you are weak or powerful, noble or lowly, please lend me your power now. He wanted to borrow the power of all of the Jinlong world's living beings and gather all of their power for a battle. The blood fog surged into the dragon abyss. Jiu Yuanzhou looked at the figure in the sky and laughed. The younger generation will surpass us in time. I didn't manage to face the Blood Emperor head-on, but you did. I will lend you my cultivation so that you can create a new future for the Jinlong world's living beings and for our world. After he spoke, his body fused into the blood fog. Old Qin chuckled. Heavenly Law Alliance's members swear to follow the Alliance Master until death. I will also hand over my cultivation to you. Under his lead, the 10,000 Heavenly Law Alliance's members stepped into the blood fog. There is also the Annihilation Team. Luo Xiong shouted loudly as he led the Annihilation Team into the blood fog. The Phoenix Cabinet's master, Phoenix Master Chiu, Gang Daliai, Xianxiang, and all the other people that Suyu was familiar with smiled as they also stepped into the blood fog. Ha ha ha! How can I miss out on a battle against an all-creation old monster? The King of Darkness hesitated for a moment before he looked at Suyu. He then laughed loudly as he held the god's slaughtering spear and stepped into the blood fog. In just a moment, all of the people in the Dragon Abyss had stepped into the blood fog, allowing Suyu to use their power to fight the Blood Emperor. All of the living beings on the continent who were facing destruction stepped into the blood fog under Su Yu's command. Humans and beasts could also step into it. Trees, flowers, and grass were all burned into flames, which fused into the blood fog. Chapter 734. The fish in the water leaped out of the water, the insects burrowed out of the ground, and the ants and moths scrambled into the fog. Every spiritual being chose to contribute their strength as their blood boiled. In an instant, the Jinlong world became deathly silent. The reason for that was because all of the living beings were gathered within the blood mist. Xia Jingyu stood beside Suyu and looked at his profile. She then covered her mouth and laughed. Brother Suyu, we all believe in you. With that, he stepped into the blood mist. At this moment, the palm print came crashing down, destroying the world. At that moment, Suyu suddenly opened his eyes. An unprecedented sense of power filled his heart. The blood fog that he released contained the power of all the living creatures in the Jinlong continent, from the small flowers and trees to the large human experts. Their powers were all entrusted to Suyu. Suyu's current power was unprecedented. In his perception, even tearing apart the heavens and earth and shattering the stars would be a piece of cake. The Blood Emperor, who was so powerful that he felt suffocated, now looked like an ordinary person. As for the world-destroying palm, Lin Fan could sense that it was ordinary and not strong at all. I also know the heaven-extinguishing divine palm. Suyu raised his head and raised his palm. The blood mist that covered the Jinlong world quickly gathered and formed a palm print of the same size. Within the palm print, one could see the figures of true dragons. Humans, beasts, insects, fish, birds, beasts, all living creatures were within. It was as if they were working together to form this palm imprint and collided with the world-destroying palm imprint. The rumbling sound swept across the surroundings. When the destructive palm print collided with the blood mist, it immediately collapsed. The palm print's momentum didn't diminish, and it continued to roll backward, shattering the starry sky. The Blood Emperor's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly retreated. His eyes flickered, and he shouted, "A bunch of ants! No matter how many of them there are, they are still ants." Swimming Dragon ate Trigram's palm. The Blood Emperor attacked with his palm. Suyu shook his head and calmly said, "A single spark can start a prairie fire. Even an ant can destroy the sun, the moon, and the stars if it gathers its power." Bang! The blood mist palm was like a hot knife through butter as it collided with the Blood Emperor in the starry sky. Puff! The Blood Emperor's arm shattered with a cracking sound, and his body was sent flying, shattering countless meteorites. "It's impossible for me to be defeated by a group of ants like you." The Blood Emperor didn't believe that an all-creation being would lose to a group of ants. Again, with a loud roar, the Blood Emperor's all-creation's power surged. The sun and moon crown revolved above his head as he fought against the blood palm. Puff! This time he was sent flying again. His body split into pieces and was on the verge of collapse. Suyu was right. Many ants could kill an elephant. The Blood Emperor wasn't fighting against a bunch of ants, but the entire Jinlong world. He was fighting against a world. You are wrong. Indeed, you will not be defeated by us. Instead, you will be killed. Suyu's eyes were filled with boundless coldness as he took a step forward and crossed thousands of miles of the Milky Way. On his head, there was also a crown of reincarnation of the sun and moon. After gathering the power of the true dragon world, his cultivation had also reached the all-creation realm. Underworld Pearl. As Suyu sucked in the air, the underworld pearl, which had fallen in the Jinlong world, traveled across millions of starry skies, teleported over and landed in Suyu's palm. The moment it entered his hand, Suyu waved his hand. In the blink of an eye, the river of stars flowed backwards. Countless stars shattered and turned into dust. How could the Blood Emperor's body, which had collapsed, withstand such an attack? His body turned into a bloody mist on the spot. However, an angry roar reverberated from within the bloody mist. "Undying silver body!" The shattered bloody mist gathered together once again, forming the Blood Emperor's body. At this moment, the Blood Emperor was extremely shocked. He couldn't help but admit that if he hadn't cultivated the undying silver body, he would have been the one who would have been killed, let alone all of them. He couldn't do anything to him. Little Suyu, Jinlong ants, all of you listen up. I want you to live, but heaven won't allow you to die. I want you to die, but heaven won't allow you to live. You were lucky this time, but next time I will surely kill you, unless you can maintain this condensed state forever. The Blood Emperor took out the Emperor Tower, his eyes flickering with hatred and resentment. He was about to leave and retreat for the time being. He wanted to wait for them to scatter and become incapable of condensing their power before killing them all. Open! As he shouted, the Blood Emperor activated the Emperor Tower forcefully and prepared to cross over to the Jojo world. However, when he had just activated it, Suyu, who was behind him, crossed the Milky Way and chased after him. Suyu's eyes flickered coldly as he said, "I said that I would kill you this time. You will be erased from this world forever." Boom! After he spoke, he thrust his palm, which contained the whole world's power, at the same time struck the Blood Emperor's body. The Blood Emperor's body exploded. "Ah, Suyu, I will surely remember you." As he shouted angrily, the Blood Emperor gathered his body and escaped into the Emperor Tower's vortex. He wanted to cross over to the Jojo world. The Emperor Tower disappeared along with him, leaving behind only the slowly dissipating vortex. If Su Yu allowed him to escape, he probably wouldn't have another chance to kill him. Su Yu's gaze became ice-cold as he looked back at the blue planet, which was the home of all living beings. Jinlong's living beings, we can't go home until our great enemy has been eliminated. All living beings, follow me into Juzhou, and we will slaughter all of them. His voice reverberated through the blood mist. Kill him. Slaughter your way into Juzhou. We will follow Alliance Master Su to the death and eliminate our enemies. As Su Yu's body flickered, he left behind an afterimage in the starry sky and escaped into the vortex just before it disappeared. The starry sky became deathly still, and only the tragic scenes of the battle remained, as well as a planet that had become deathly still. Su Yu escaped into the vortex. It was unknown how many spaces he had crossed, but it seemed like he had crossed hundreds of millions of miles. The long journey made Su Yu feel like he had gone through hundreds of years. Then, a terrifyingly dense spiritual energy assaulted him. An unfamiliar, colorful, and magnificent world appeared in front of him. Spiritual herbs, which he had never seen before, were growing here. If they were placed in the Jinlong world, they would at least be priceless spiritual objects. Unknown birds and beasts were flying in the sky, and their cultivations were at least at the half-god realm. There were even many half-fairy realm birds. There were also many strange-shaped insects moving about on the mountain. Their cultivations were all at the Holy King realm, and some of them were even close to reaching the dragon realm. If these creatures were in the Jinlong world, they would all be overlords. But here they were just insects on the roadside. All of the people in the blood mist were shocked. They were all dumbfounded as they looked at the scene in front of them, which had overturned their common sense. Gulp! Someone swallowed a mouthful of saliva while his apple moved. Even more people opened their eyes wide as they looked at the flourishing world in front of them. At this moment, they felt like country bumpkins who had just entered a city. The Jinlong world and the world in front of them were two completely different places. Is this an alien continent? Is this the homeland of an alien expert? Someone finally muttered. Excitement appeared in Zhou Yuanzhou's eyes. Jojo, long time no see. I have finally returned. Jojo. They had reached the Jojo world. Su Yu's eyes flickered with astonishment for a moment. However, he didn't forget that there was still a great enemy that he had yet to kill. His gaze swept the surroundings before it finally stopped in the west. There was a giant city there, which stretched across the horizon. Even though Su Yu's eyes could penetrate 10,000 miles, he still couldn't see the end of the city. Its vastness was comparable to the Jinlong continent's area. He suddenly recalled that Wu Hen had once mentioned that the Jinlong world's area was just the size of a human city in the Jojo world. At first, he didn't believe it, but now he was deeply shocked. The Blood Emperor, whom Su Yu was looking for, was also in the direction of that city. Follow me. Let's kill the Blood Emperor. Su Yu shouted as he swept the blood mist toward the west. If one looked at him from afar, it would seem like a white-haired, red-eyed youth who was covered in a sea of blood had crossed space to attack them. He emitted a shocking evil aura, and he seemed like a peerless demon king. Wherever he passed, all living beings would retreat. His aura spread to the entire city and caused a great commotion. What, an all-creation's aura? It even contains an evil aura. The expression of a late-stage divine master realm old monster in the city changed drastically. He then flew into the sky and disappeared without a trace. Awful. It's probably an evil all-creation old monster who has come to capture living beings to cultivate. Run away quickly. In an instant, the entire city seemed to be in an uproar. Densely packed figures of experts rushed into the sky and fled. If one looked at it from afar, it would seem like a beehive had been poked open, and many people were fleeing in fright. Su, you didn't pay attention to them, as his gaze was fixed on an inconspicuous corner of the city. "Blood Emperor, can you escape?" In a certain alley, the Blood Emperor, whose body was covered in blood and whose face was pale, exclaimed, "What? You chased me all the way to Juzhou?" His face was filled with shock and anger. He had never expected that Su Yu would dare to chase him all the way to Juzhou. "Su Yu, you are going too far." The Blood Emperor roared crazily as he flew into the sky. However, just as he was about to fly out, a yellow and blue ball flew at him. "Ah!" As a miserable scream echoed out, the Blood Emperor was once again smashed into meat paste. "Undying silver body." The Blood Emperor roared angrily as he used this technique once again to reform his body. After gathering, they fled to the west without another word. Humph! Su Yu snorted coldly as he chased after him. After the two all-creation old monsters left, the people in the city descended into panic. "Blood Emperor! Someone is chasing after him." The late-stage Divine Master, who had just returned, was dumbfounded. "Impossible! Did I mishear him?" The Blood Emperor reached the all-creation realm several hundred years ago, and his current fighting prowess was comparable to any of Juzhou's kings. Only he could kill others, and no one could kill him. Moreover, he still had the even more terrifying Central Prefecture's king behind him. Who dares to chase after the Blood Emperor in the Central Prefecture? You can mishear him, but you can't misrecognize a person. The person who fled is undoubtedly the Blood Emperor. But who is the old monster who is chasing after him? Why have I never seen him before? He has white hair, blood-red eyes, a world-destroying evil energy, and a boundless sea of blood. Could he be a demonic cultivator? Juzhou's demonic cultivator. Is another ruthless person going to appear? Why is he chasing after the infamous Blood Emperor? We must report this matter back to the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. The late-stage Divine Master's eyes were filled with shock as he muttered softly before he left in a hurry. The people in the city also left one after another, bringing back this shocking news that shook Juzhou. The Blood Emperor was being chased by a ruthless person, and this matter was enough to startle the whole world's factions. Chapter 735. As Su Yu crossed countless mountains and rivers, he locked on to the Blood Emperor and smashed him into pieces. Along the way, he passed by dozens of great cities. All of them gave rise to a great commotion. Thus, the news that the Blood Emperor was being chased by a ruthless, demonic cultivator spread throughout the whole Central Prefecture. This chase lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The Blood Emperor was smashed into pieces again and again, but he still managed to use the inextinguishable silver body to regenerate. On the 3rd day, they crossed a snowy plain. "Lad, that's enough." The Blood Emperor's whole body was in a sorry state. His blood energy was declining, and his cultivation had dropped by more than 30%. The inextinguishable silver body really had a price, which was the drop of his cultivation. At the all-creation realm, even a small increase in one's cultivation would require a great price. Now, it had dropped by 30%. Su Yu didn't pay any attention to him as he thrust the underworld pearl, which was a terrifying weapon that even the Blood Emperor couldn't deal with at the same time. The Blood Emperor was infuriated, but he had to retreat and swallow his anger. "Lad, to tell you the truth, we are almost in the Central Prefecture, which has many experts. If you continue to chase us, you will surely die. As for me, I will just use the inextinguishable silver body a few more times and lose some of my cultivation. Do you really want to die together with me?" Su Yu's gaze became grave. They were almost in the Central Prefecture. When he turned his head and looked at the blood mist behind him, he saw that they were also exhausted. After all, if they were trapped in the Central Prefecture's territory and were besieged, how could they break out of the encirclement with their exhausted bodies? But could they let the Blood Emperor go just like that? No, since the Blood Emperor already knew that they had arrived in the 9 prefectures. How could he let them off when they had such a deep grudge? He obviously wouldn't. Moreover, Even if the Blood Emperor showed mercy, there was still the Central Prefecture's king. The Jinlong world's living beings already knew about the feud between the Central Prefecture's king and the former Jiuzhou Emperor. Wasn't he worried that he would be punished by the other prefecture's kings? Just the fact that he had colluded with the ghost world and killed the Jiuzhou Emperor was enough for the other prefecture's kings to besiege him and kill him. So, no matter what, the Central Prefecture's king wouldn't let them go. If the Blood Emperor returned, the Central Prefecture's king would kill all of them who had arrived in the 9 prefectures at all costs, even without the Blood Emperor's help. This was the world of the 9 prefectures, and it was needless to say how powerful a prefecture king was. Therefore, their existence must not be known by the Central Prefecture's king. The Blood Emperor must die, otherwise what awaited the true dragon living beings would be endless pursuit. However, the Blood Emperor who possessed the indestructible silver body couldn't be killed within a short period of time. There was only one way. Su Yu's eyes flickered with determination. He then opened his mouth, and an elixir that was emitting a 4-colored radiance slowly floated out of his mouth. Xia Jingyu's eyes flashed as she exclaimed, "Reversal pill!" However, more than half of the medicinal effect has already been lost. A complete heaven reversal pill would have 9 rainbow-colored veins. However, there were only 4 at this moment. Su Yu was able to reverse time and space by relying on the vitality of this divine elixir. He would consume his own lifespan and then use this life force to replenish his lifespan. Otherwise, how could Su Yu's mere lifespan of a few hundred years withstand such a huge reversal of time and space? Now that there were only 4 veined patterns left, he could borrow the vitality within them to reverse time and space. After taking a deep breath, Su Yu withdrew his blood-red eyes. His left eye was now filled with a dazzling purple splendor that blotted out the sky and the sun. "Time reversal!" Su Yu shouted in a low voice. As he was engulfed by the purple splendor, time started flowing backward. This time, it was just a simple reversal of time. There wasn't any spatial power flowing backward, so there wouldn't be any spatial changes. Instead, it was purely a reversal of time. The towering trees, which were several hundred zhang tall, started shrinking gradually to 100 zhang tall. Then they turned into saplings, which were only an inch tall. Then they turned into seeds, which then disappeared from the world. Time had returned to a time when they hadn't appeared. In just a short moment, several hundred years of time had been reversed. The price he had to pay for this was that one of the veins on the reversal pill had disappeared, and he had lost a quarter of his vitality. As for the Blood Emperor, he had unexpectedly returned to his youthful state from his middle-aged body. The Blood Emperor should have been happy that he had returned to his youthful state, but now he was terrified and frightened. You want to reverse time and go back to a time when I wasn't even born?" Su Yu nodded. "That's right. No matter how powerful your undying silver body is, it won't be of any use." At this moment, the Blood Emperor was really flustered. While he teleported crazily in an attempt to escape from the region of the time reversal, he turned his head around and spoke sincerely. "Su Yu, it's all because of my carelessness. I admit that I was wrong. So why don't we just stop here?" It seemed like he knew the reason why Su Yu was determined to kill him, so he spoke quickly. "I won't tell anyone about your existence, and I won't cause any trouble for you in the future. What do you think?" Su Yu replied coldly, "It's nothing. I'm more willing to trust a dead person." As he spoke, the time reversal of several hundred years occurred once again. The battle robe on the Blood Emperor's body loosened, and his body returned to its youthful state. When the Blood Emperor realized that he was facing an unprecedented crisis, he was both startled and angered. "Lad Su Yu, will you only be satisfied after you kill me?" As he spoke, he didn't forget to teleport away. However, Su Yu, who also possessed an all-creation cultivation, didn't let go of him. He was still enveloped by the time reversal. Su Yu replied coldly, "But when you destroyed the Jinlong world 3 times, Did you ever think about sparing our lives? Now that it's your turn, why are you begging for mercy? Even if you want to apologize, it's already too late. You must die for the Jinlong world, for the Jojo Emperor, and for the heroic spirits who died in the past. When the Blood Emperor realized that he couldn't make peace, he felt remorseful. Why didn't he just leave the Jinlong world when he felt so restless? If he had just let the Jinlong world's living beings go, he wouldn't have forced Suyu into such a desperate situation and forced him to hunt him down. Remorse was useless, and fleeing was also useless. In just an instant, the Blood Emperor had returned from his youthful state to that of an 8-year-old child. Suyu, if you want me to die, then don't even dream about having an easy time. The 8-year-old Blood Emperor was engulfed by the armor. His childish face was filled with resentment as he opened his mouth and spat out a black badge. The badge had a sun and a moon carved on it, as well as the words Central Prefecture. Although Suyu didn't know what the badge's use was, it was obvious that the Blood Emperor's counterattack before his death was extremely terrifying. As he retreated quickly, the time reversal still enveloped the Blood Emperor, and his body started shrinking at a rapid pace. 8 years old, 7 years old, 6 years old, 5 years old, for years old at this moment, the Blood Emperor found it difficult to even hold the badge. Humph! It's already too late. The Blood Emperor snorted in a childish voice, but when Suyu heard it, his pupils couldn't help but contract. Disappear from this world, Suyu shouted in a low voice. As a purple light flickered, the Blood Emperor's body shrunk from 4 years old to 3 years old, then from 3 years old to 2 years old, then from 2 years old to 1 year old. In the end, his body shrunk from 1 year old to that of a newborn. He now had the body of a baby. However, his gaze, which was filled with resentment, didn't disappear even after a long time. You will all die. The Blood Emperor left behind a wisp of his well before he disappeared as time reversed. The living beings in the blood fog heaved a sigh of relief. They had chased him from the Jinlong world to the Jojo world and killed him countless times. Now, they had finally managed to erase him from this world. From this moment onward, there was no longer a person called the Blood Emperor in this world. However, they still couldn't relax for the time being, as the black badge left behind by the Blood Emperor before his death made all of them feel restless. As Suyu looked at the black badge, he didn't even give it a second thought before he led the crowd and retreated quickly. Let's leave this place. Suyu, who was engulfed by the all-creation realm's aura, crossed space and teleported away. However, what made his scalp turn numb was that even though he had crossed 1,000,000 miles of mountains and rivers, the black badge was still following them closely. Their positions hadn't changed in the slightest. It was as if the badge had been teleported along with them. Suyu's pupils contracted as he crossed space once again. After crossing 1,000,000 miles of mountains and rivers, Suyu's expression became grave. The badge was still following them, and they couldn't get rid of it. Suyu stopped and muttered to himself for a moment. He then raised his hand and waved it, causing the blood fog, which filled the sky, to return to his body. After losing the Jinlong world's living being's power, Suyu's cultivation went back to normal. Brother Suyu, can't we escape? Xia Jingyu flew to Suyu's side and stood next to him. She looked at the strange black badge behind them and felt restless. Suyu shook his head, then nodded. It's more accurate to say that I can't escape, as this badge has locked onto me. Xia Jingyu immediately understood Suyu's intentions. Let them scatter and escape. I will stay behind to accompany you. Everyone understood Suyu's intentions. He wanted them to escape, while Suyu stayed behind to deal with the strange black badge. However, Suyu unexpectedly rejected her. No, all of you must leave. Moreover, you must all leave together and you mustn't act alone. The Jojo world is vast, and it is filled with dangers and unknowns to all of you. So, you must unite and look for a secluded place to live. Su Yu turned his head around and swept his gaze over the crowd. Our statuses are special, and we mustn't expose our Jinlong identities. Otherwise, we will surely be killed. So, you must forget your identities and blend into the Jojo world. Everyone was silent, as they could hear that Su Yu was arranging a way out for them. It seemed like he was leaving them some last words. Along the way, according to my observations, there are many small towns and villages with hundreds of thousands of people, and their cultivation bases are similar to yours. So, you can disguise yourselves as people who have migrated from other regions. Then, you can establish your own towns and live as Jojo's people. He then added, after you settle down, you must send the talented youths to the Jojo world's factions to be nurtured. Then, you must secretly strengthen our own power. Only then will we have an opportunity to return to the Jinlong world and protect it. He then added, this is my last order as the Heavenly Law Alliance's master. Old Qin turned his head around and looked at the 100,000 people behind him. He then raised his voice and asked, did you all hear me? The 100,000 people quietly looked at Su Yu, their hearts filled with reverence and gratitude. Since you all heard me, then you should all leave. I will stay behind. Old Qin tried to stay behind, as he didn't want Su Yu to face such a difficult situation again. However, he was immediately interrupted by Su Yu. No, I said that all of you are not allowed to stay behind. You must all leave. Chapter 736. If you stay here, I'll have to take care of myself, and I won't be able to use my full power. I might still have a chance if I go alone, and even if I can't face them, escaping won't be a problem, Su Yu said confidently. Xia Jingyu bit her red lips, wanting to say something, but hesitating. Su Yu put his arm around her shoulder and kissed her forehead in front of 100,000 people. This was Su Yu's way of expressing his feelings to the Jinlong living beings. Xia Jingyu's delicate body trembled as she stood rooted to the ground. Jingyu, help me take care of Xian, okay? If I'm still alive, I'll come back to look for you, Su Yu said. This was a request that Xia Jingyu couldn't refuse, as she was the only one who could take care of Xiener in Su Yu's place. After she hesitated for a long while, she looked into Su Yu's eyes and nodded. Fine, I promise you, but you must also promise me that you will surely come back. Su Yu nodded. Before long, under the protection of the King of Darkness, all of them fled to the east. Only Su Yu and the strange black badge were left in the same place. After Su Yu witnessed them leaving, he took a look at the black badge and tried to fly several hundred meters away. As expected, the badge locked onto Su Yu and followed him. As such, he was not worried. Instead, he heaved a sigh of relief. In that case, Xia Jingyu and the others would be safe. As he stared at the badge, Su Yu pondered over its purpose. However, right at this moment, the black token suddenly shone with black light. Boundless black light shot out, forming a light screen in front of Su Yu. In the light screen, a young man sat on a crystal throne. He wore a golden robe embroidered with 9 flying dragons. Each dragon was like a living creature, emanating an astonishing spirituality. The boundless aura of an emperor rushed over. It was as if the young man before him was the emperor of the mortal world. Su Yu stared at him, wanting to see his opponent's face clearly. However, as soon as he looked at him, his eyes hurt. He couldn't even look at the other party's face. Since Blood Emperor used the death token, he must be dead. The martial emperor in the image was calm and composed. He wasn't moved by the death of a peak all creation being like the Blood Emperor. Su Yu's gaze was calm. Who are you? Blood Emperor is my bright light guard leader. Who do you think I am? The emperor said calmly. Central Prefecture's king. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. The emperor mentioned by the other party was actually the Central Prefecture's king. Tell me, who killed the Blood Emperor? The Blood Emperor marked you before he died, so you must know the inside story, the Central Prefecture's king said calmly, but his tone was like a natural order. Su Yu's gaze shifted, and he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, intending to escape. However, the moment he moved, the Central Prefecture's king, looked over. That one look made Suyu feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. The blood in his body froze, and he was unable to move. Even the all-creations were not this terrifying. What realm had the Central Prefecture's king reached? Forget it. I'm about to start cultivating. If you don't want to tell me, I won't ask too much, the Central Prefecture's king said calmly. As he spoke, he grabbed at Suyu through the light screen. This grab caused Suyu's soul to tremble violently. He was actually being forcefully pulled away from his body. What kind of divine ability was this? It could actually capture souls through space? The light screen was just a projection. The real Central Prefecture's king was far away. However, even after crossing such a great distance, it could still easily capture Suyu's soul. Suyu's soul struggled to return to his physical body. However, the grabbing power could not be shaken in the slightest. Seeing his soul being pulled out of his body bit by bit, Suyu's intuition told him that once his soul was pulled out, he would die. The Central Prefecture's king wanted to kill Suyu so easily. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, the Central Prefecture's king did not reveal any killing intent. It was just like killing an ant, which he did not need to use any killing intent at all. His soul was gradually being pulled out, but Suyu could not resist it. His body was still confined, and he could not move at all. At this critical moment, Suyu glanced at the fate-altering elixir in his palm. Only half of its pattern was left. No, its color was very dim. Seeing his soul was about to be pulled out completely, Suyu clenched his teeth, and a purple light shot out from his eyes. Time reversal! Time immediately reversed. Suyu's physical body returned to before it was confined. His soul, which had been pulled out, was also slowly returning to his physical body. In the light screen, the Central Prefecture's king, who was calm and composed, could not help but look through the light screen. Then he said in surprise, "Time reversal? Unbelievable." To Suyu's surprise, although time was clearly reversed, the power that was pulling his soul was not affected at all. The power of time was not enough to shake it at all. In other words, the time reversal created by Suyu was not enough to shake the unfathomable Central Prefecture's king. Interesting. I want to see what's so strange about you. The Central Prefecture's king curled up the corners of his mouth, showing his interest. All of a sudden, the power that was pulling Suyu became twice as strong. Most of his soul was forcibly pulled out of his physical body. Only his head soul was firmly attached to his physical body. What? It seems like there is something in your soul that even I can't shake. The Central Prefecture's king was even more interested. As soon as he finished speaking, the power that was pulling Suyu became more than twice as strong. Buzz! Buzz! With a slight vibration, the divine nine-dragon cauldron in Suyu's mind was forcibly pulled out. This was the first time that the divine nine-dragon cauldron had been forcibly moved. Hiss! Interesting. I'm even more curious now. The Central Prefecture's king was surprised. He had already exerted 60% of his power, but still could not pull Suyu's soul out. Even if it was an all-creation old monster, 20% of his power was enough to pull it out. The Central Prefecture's king smiled as he exerted all of his power. Suddenly, the power that was pulling Suyu's soul became 5 times stronger. How? A dragon's roar came from the divine nine-dragon cauldron. The red liquid in the cauldron was shaking violently like a raging sea. The whole divine nine-dragon cauldron was constantly pulled out of Suyu's body along with his soul. Finally, a corner of the divine nine-dragon cauldron was revealed. The Central Prefecture's king's smiling face froze the moment the corner of the divine nine-dragon cauldron appeared. Then it turned into confusion and thought. Immediately, his pupils constricted in shock and horror. The divine nine-dragon cauldron. The divine cauldron of the ancient god Jilong. The Central Prefecture's king stood up from his throne and cried out involuntarily. His calm face was covered by shock and ecstasy. This divine cauldron actually came to the Jojo continent. The Central Prefecture's king's eyes were bursting with excitement. God is helping me. This divine cauldron actually fell into my hands. Su Yu was even more shocked. The divine nine-dragon cauldron had been recognized. Who was the ancient god Jilong? Did the divine nine-dragon cauldron belong to him? However, this was not the time to think. Once he was caught by the Central Prefecture's king, Su Yu would definitely die, even if he wanted to keep it a secret. Let's go all out. Su Yu's eyes were fixed on the black token. The purple glossy token was completely focused on the token. The old token fell into the flow of time. It went from old to half-old, and from half-old to brand new. The brand new state meant that this token had just been made not long ago. If it continued to go back in time, the token would return to the time when it had not been made yet. When the token was destroyed, the light screen would disappear naturally. Then, the Central Prefecture's king would not be able to pull out his soul again. Although the Central Prefecture's king could not be affected by the time going back in time, it could affect this token. As expected, the Central Prefecture's king's face changed. Stop! He was going to rob Su Yu of the divine nine-dragon cauldron, so how could he stop? However, right at this moment, with a cracking sound, the fate-altering pill broke into powder in Su Yu's palm. After going back in time many times, his vitality was finally used up. At the most critical moment, Su Yu's heart sank. The Central Prefecture's king was slightly relieved. Then his eyes turned cold. Humph! Do you think you are qualified to have what I want? As he spoke, he increased his strength. Su Yu's soul was pulled out again, and the divine nine-dragon cauldron was pulled out again. If this continued, Su Yu's soul would be taken away by the Central Prefecture's king. At this critical moment, Su Yu clenched his teeth. Then, a purple light appeared in his right eye again. Time going back in time. The Central Prefecture's king was shocked. Damn it! Then the Central Prefecture's king attacked Su Yu with his palm. Su Yu's palm, which contained the infinite power of heaven and earth, was about to penetrate the light screen, which made Su Yu feel like he was going to die. Space vortex. Su Yu's right eye shone brightly, which wrapped his body and soul together. At this moment, the black token, which was going back in time, couldn't bear it anymore. So it became a half-finished product. As the light screen shook violently, the Central Prefecture's king's power was weakened by more than half. Now, the divine nine-dragon cauldron could no longer be moved. Su Yu's soul returned to his body and went into the space vortex. Stop! The Central Prefecture's king was furious. It seemed like his precious treasure had been taken away. However, the light screen trembled slightly. Then it was destroyed completely. Just a little bit more, and he would have been able to leave his corpse behind. Millions of miles away, there was a human city that was 10 times the size of the Jinlong world. There was a dazzling palace floating in the sky above the human city that spanned millions of miles. The 10 all-creations old monsters sat quietly around the palace, like stars surrounding the moon. In the vast hall of the palace, a majestic figure was standing with his hands clasped behind his back. He was wearing a yellow robe with a golden dragon on it, and he had a white jade crown on his head. Behind him was a dazzling light. His eyes, which were as deep as the stars, could penetrate the starry sky. They were ice-cold and indifferent, as if they were looking down on all living beings. He had the temperament of a superior being. He was wearing a golden robe, which made him seem even more noble. Master, what happened? A young girl who was sitting beside the throne asked curiously. The young girl was 18 years old. Her eyes were as bright as snow, and they were filled with coldness. Although she was a young girl, her figure was perfect. She had a slim waist, plump breasts, and exquisite curves. However, if one observed her carefully, he would discover that there was a sun, moon, and stars crown on her head. It was an all-creation old monster's vision. Summon the Golden Light Guards. The Central Prefecture's king's expression was calm. The young girl bowed and left. After a short while, she came back, followed by 5 people, who were all wearing golden armor. Each of them had a sun and moon crown on their heads. "Greetings, your majesty." The 5 all-creation old monsters knelt down to pay their respects. "You may dispense with the formalities. Let's look for this person." The Central Prefecture's king waved his sleeves, and a light screen floated in the middle of the hall. Chapter 737. Find him. Bring him back at all costs. The last place he appeared was at the border between the Central Prefecture and the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. The Central Prefecture's king said calmly. The 5 Golden Light old monsters accepted the order. The leader of the Golden Light old monsters asked hesitantly, "May I ask if you want him alive or dead?" "I don't care if they're dead or alive. I just want their bodies." The 5 Golden Lights nodded and left respectfully. The girl stared at the young man on the screen. "Master, what kind of crime did he commit that you would personally order for him to be hunted down?" The Central Prefecture's king looked at the young girl with a gentle look in his eyes. "He is a vicious and evil person. The Blood Emperor was killed by him. I am worried that he will harm the people of the Central Prefecture. Therefore, I must arrest him and bring him to justice." The young lady was slightly shocked. "Uncle Blood Emperor is already dead." The Central Prefecture's king sighed and said with sadness in his eyes, "Yes, he has been killed by him." The young lady clenched her fists tightly and gritted her pearly white teeth. Mist swirled in her eyes, and she was about to cry, "Uncle Blood Emperor is such an amiable person. How could he do it?" As she stared at Suyu in the image, flames of hatred rose in the young girl's eyes. She then said, "Master, please let me go and kill him with my own hands. The bright Golden Guard's cultivation is on par with Uncle Blood Emperor's, so I'm afraid that he won't be able to harm us. Let me do it, and we'll definitely succeed." The Central Prefecture's king stared at the girl for a moment, then shook his head and said, "There's no need for that. You just need to focus on your cultivation and quickly cultivate the Jade Maiden Heavenly Frost art to the top class. You can just leave this matter to the Golden Light Guards. Later on, I will also arrange for your senior brother to go and kill this demon together." The young girl was unwilling. The Central Prefecture's king revealed a gentle look in his eyes and sighed softly. "I know that the Blood Emperor saved your life in the past. However, you must act rationally. Your top priority is to cultivate your cultivation technique. Everything else must be postponed." Han Xian understands. The girl gave up and slowly nodded. The Central Prefecture's king nodded and said, "Yes, you may leave." The young girl turned around and left. When she passed by the light screen, she stared at Suyu from the corner of her eyes. She clenched her fists tightly, while murderous intent flickered in her eyes. A trillion miles away, huge waves rose on the calm lake surface as a spatial vortex suddenly appeared above the lake. A white-haired figure fell out and into the lake. It was none other than Suyu. However, the current Suyu was beyond recognition. The surface of his body kept peeling off layer after layer of fragments. His arms, torso, face, and entire body were like this, as if he was shedding his skin. His youthful and smooth skin had become extremely rough and wrinkled. His face was old, his chi and blood were declining, and his muscles were atrophied. He was an old man who had reached the end of his life and was about to enter the earth. Suyu crawled out of the lake with great difficulty. His whole body was drenched, and he cut a sorry figure. As Suyu stood by the lake and looked at his own reflection, his face was calm, but his heart was filled with bitterness. At the last moment, the fate-altering elixir's life force was exhausted, and Suyu paid the price of his own lifespan to turn back time. Although he managed to successfully resolve the crisis, the reversal of time, which seemed like a short moment, cost Suyu almost 100 years of his lifespan. turning him from a young man to an old man. Central Prefecture's king. If I don't take revenge for this, I am not a human. Su Yu clenched his fists and said coldly, regardless of whether he had forced the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron into a corner or learned the secret of the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, he had to eliminate the Central Prefecture's king. Now, what Su Yu was most worried about was Xia Jingyu and the others. He was wondering whether they would be able to conceal themselves and establish a Jinlong clan's territory. Moreover, where were they? How could he find them? The spatial vortex's teleportation distance had already been verified, and it could teleport them from the Jinlong world to a galaxy that was millions of miles away. He had no idea where they were at the moment. Everything will depend on your luck. Su Yu sighed softly. It was only now that he cared about himself. Su Yu sat down cross-legged and inspected his body's condition. He wouldn't have known if he hadn't taken a look, but the moment he did, he was shocked. His body had deteriorated greatly, and it was especially the case for his internal organs, flesh and blood. His internal organs were aging, and their functions had declined sharply. Even his breathing was difficult. As for his flesh, it had deteriorated greatly. In the past, although Su Yu couldn't be considered strong, his flesh and blood contained a powerful energy, which made his body powerful. Now his qi and blood were weak, his muscles were atrophied, and he didn't have any strength left in his body. Even when he stood, he felt like his legs were sore. Moreover, his cultivation's meridians were also in a grave condition. His meridians had shrunk severely, resulting in the stagnation of Jinqi. His Jinqi could not circulate at all, not even a single strand of spiritual energy. This was because he had successfully cultivated the first dragon's body, and his meridians had reached the level of the fairy realm. Otherwise, his meridians would have been broken, and they would not have shrunk. The only parts that were still intact were his dantian and soul. The 6 vital energy crystals in his dantian were still in perfect condition and had not been affected at all. His vital energy was filled to the brim, and once his internal energy channels were unobstructed, he could consider making a breakthrough to the fairy realm. As for his soul, it seemed that because of the existence of the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, his soul was not affected. These 2 points made Su Yu feel gratified. After this, he only needed to use the natural spiritual treasures to make his body healthy and clear. Then he would be able to break through to the fairy realm. Once he broke through to the fairy realm, his lifespan would increase, and his old appearance would gradually recover. It could be said that restoring the unobstructed meridians was of utmost importance. All in all, his physical condition wasn't very optimistic. His body was on the verge of destruction, and he was even weaker than an ordinary old man. Perhaps a middle-aged man could pose a great threat to Su Yu. Without the support of Jinqi, many magical treasures and cultivation techniques could not be used. Only soul secret arts could be used. For example, soul separation, soul flame, and heaven's sun gazing at air soul control. As such, he could barely protect himself. As long as his opponent wasn't stronger than the early stage of the fairy realm, he should be able to deal with them. Now he had to find a way to find a town and obtain spirit medicine to nourish his body. However, when he stood up and looked around, Su Yu was dumbfounded. All he could see were desolate mountains and precipitous cliffs. He was at the bottom of the valley, and there was only an old mountain road to pass through. The mountain path was covered in weeds, almost burying the road surface. No one had come here for at least 3 years. Su Yu's body was weak, so he couldn't walk very far. He had lost his Jinqi and could not fly. "Are you trying to kill me?" Su Yu didn't know whether he should laugh or cry as he looked at his surroundings blankly. He was a dignified half-fairy, and he had just killed an all-creation old monster. Yet, in the end, he was going to be trapped in this desolate forest. Suddenly, the crisp sound of horse hooves could be heard clearly from afar. What a coincidence! Did someone just pass by? Su Yu pricked up his ears and listened carefully. He was slightly surprised. The sound of horse hooves was muffled and muffled. It was obviously a herd of horses. Could it be bandits? Su Yu smacked his lips. In this desolate forest, only bandits would appear in large numbers. Even if they weren't bandits, their identities were unknown, and it was impossible to know whether they were good or evil. Su Yu was now at his weakest, so he had to be careful. Looking around, he saw that the bottom of the valley was flat and had no cover. There were only a few rocks of different sizes. Although he could hide himself, it was easy to hide from one person, but difficult to hide from a group of people. Suddenly, he saw the lake behind him, and his eyes lit up. He moved his weak body with great difficulty and dove into the lake again. As long as the other party left, he could climb out again. Dong! The sound of horse hooves approached, causing ripples to form in the lake. Su Yu counted in his heart. His body couldn't stay in the ice-cold lake for too long. Once the group of horses left, he would have to get up quickly. However, his face stiffened when the sound of horse hooves gradually became weaker. They had stopped. They were right by the lake. The sky is about to turn dark. The demonic ape mountain range is in front of us. That demonic ape might be patrolling nearby. If we fight it at night, we humans will be at a disadvantage. It's inadvisable to move forward. Let's set up camp by the lakeside. We'll set up camp tomorrow morning. The leader of the group was a middle-aged man. He was in his early 30s, and his cultivation was at the level 1 fairy realm. He had a calm demeanor and bright eyes. As he looked at the mountain range in front of them, he waved his hand and signaled for them to stop. Da-da-da! At this moment, the group of horses arrived one after another, and a carriage, which was surrounded by many guards, slowly arrived. The carriage had exquisite carvings, and it was made of top-grade fragrant wood. It was fragrant and contained a faint spiritual energy. Coupled with the fact that it had a half-fairy and a fairy realm guard, it was obvious that even if it wasn't extremely rich, it was still extremely noble. At the very least, no faction in the Jinlong world was qualified to have a fairy realm guard. The leader of the fairies rode his horse to the carriage and said, "First miss, second miss, the demonic ape mountain range is just ahead of us. For safety's sake, we should set up camp by the lake for a day and set off tomorrow morning." As the carriage's beaded curtain was lifted, a noble woman's face was revealed. Her hair was combed into a phoenix bun, and a dragon and phoenix hairpin was inserted on top of her head. Her eyebrows were long and raised, and her limpid eyes shone brightly. The tip of her nose was high, and her lips were red. Her skin was snow white, and her curves were beautiful. The curves of her body were beautiful. She was tall and exquisite, exceptionally perfect. That's all. Let's rest here and set off tomorrow, the woman instructed calmly. At this moment, a pretty and adorable face squeezed through the beaded curtain. Her cheeks still had some baby fat, and her eyes were clear and bright, reflecting the sky. Her face was full of smiles, and she was the complete opposite of the beautiful, cold, and arrogant woman. "Is there a lake?" "That's great. Big sister and I have been on the move for days, and we haven't had a bath in the past few days. If we don't wash up, we will get lice," the cute and pretty young girl said happily. The noble woman furrowed her brows slightly. "You have no manners. If you don't know how to speak, then don't speak." It was indeed rude of her to say that she wanted to take a bath in front of a man. The cute young girl shrank her neck and stuck out her tongue. She then looked at the beautiful woman in fear, as if she was an obedient child. "Big sister, I'm sorry. I was wrong." The noble woman cast a glance at her calmly, while disgust flickered in her eyes. She didn't pay any attention to her, so she got out of the carriage. Su Yu vaguely heard the word bath, and he felt miserable. He couldn't come out, but he also couldn't hide. Su Yu chuckled bitterly, and he could only grit his teeth and bear it. He then sneaked into the reeds and waited for them to fall asleep. Night quickly fell. After the meal, the maids left, and there were only a few female guards left by the lake. "Big sister, don't you want to come with me?" the cute young girl asked. The noblewoman, who was wearing a ferret shawl, replied calmly, "The water is cold, so I don't want to go. If you want to go, you can go by yourself." The cute young girl was disappointed, but she still took a change of clothes and went into the lake to wash up. After she left, the noblewoman spoke to the maids next to her. "Prepare to change your clothes. Let's go to the other side." As she spoke, she looked at the cute young girl, who was washing up by the lake, before she expressionlessly walked toward the other side of the lake. The maids who were following her looked at the cute young girl and mocked her disdainfully. "Even the family master's bastard child is worthy of bathing with the young miss? Do you really think that just because you call her second miss, you really have the young miss' precious body?" The noblewoman didn't pay any attention to her, and she just looked at the lake. Since she had clearly refused to take a bath, she would have to take a bath quietly to save her face. However, this lake wasn't big, so how could she take a bath quietly? All of a sudden, she saw a dense patch of reeds, which was the perfect place to hide her body. "Let's go over there." The noblewoman revealed a smile, then lifted her skirt and walked over. She quickly took off her clothes, revealing a perfect, blood-curdling beauty in front of her. She had towering breasts, a curvaceous waist, and long, slender legs. Everything about her was perfect. Her jade-like feet tapped the cold water lightly. Although it was cold, it wasn't too cold. The noblewoman, who hadn't taken a bath for many days, revealed a delighted look. She then stepped into the water and took a bath. Pop! All of a sudden, the sound of water rippling echoed from the patch of reeds behind her. It seemed like someone was stepping on the reeds and slowly swimming over. The lake had already been inspected by the guards, and there weren't any ferocious beasts in it. Moreover, there were people keeping watch in the vicinity, so no evil person could sneak in. The only possibility was that her younger sister, who was taking a bath on the other side, had sneaked over. The noblewoman was aware of her younger sister's naughtiness, so she furrowed her brows. She was quite displeased, but she still wore a calm expression. "You came? Come over. Let's take a bath together. But don't make any noise." Su-yu had stayed in the patch of reeds for too long, and his frail body couldn't bear the night's cold. So he could only swim back to the shore cautiously. However, when he was just about to climb out, he was startled by a sudden voice. "Oh no, I've been discovered." When Su-yu came back to his senses, he was startled. Take a bath together? Which family's woman is so slutty as to invite a man to take a bath with her in the middle of the night? When she didn't hear any movement behind her, the noblewoman became displeased and shouted, "Why aren't you coming over? Do you want me to invite you?" Chapter 738. Su-yu turned around and took a look at her. Her curvaceous back was exquisite and graceful. Her skin was as smooth as a piece of unpolished jade. Under the weak bonfire, it glowed with a faint luster. Her back was very beautiful, but in Su-yu's eyes there was only disgust. "What's wrong with you?" The noble lady frowned slightly. Her younger sister's silence made her feel that something was wrong. She subconsciously looked back, but what he saw in front of him was not his sister, but an old man with disheveled hair and drenched in sweat. "Ghost!" the noblewoman shrieked, her pupils constricting. Su-yu's whole body was in a mess. His wet long hair covered his face, revealing only his eyes. In the dark night he did look somewhat terrifying. Misunderstanding? Only then did Su-yu realize. Perhaps the noble lady had mistaken him for someone else. When Su-yu saw that she was about to shriek once again, he pounced on her without any hesitation and pressed her against the reeds, while covering her mouth with his right hand to prevent her from shrieking. Although his body was weak, it was still possible for him to push down a delicate woman. Of course, the woman had to have no cultivation. Unfortunately, not only did the woman have cultivation, she was also not weak. Pervert! The noble woman mistakenly thought that Su-yu was trying to take advantage of her, so she instinctively resisted. She condensed a mass of vital energy in her palm and struck Su-yu's shoulder. Bang! Without any suspense, Suyu's palm strike sent him flying, and he fell into the reeds. The huge commotion naturally attracted the surrounding guards. The noble woman quickly put on her clothes and came out from the reeds. "Miss, what happened?" The maidservant's expression changed slightly as she realized that something was wrong. She immediately stood in front of the noble lady and stared at the pitch-black reeds. "Someone, the young lady, is in danger." "Walala!" A group of armed guards rushed over. The leader of the men, in his 30s, had a sharp look in his eyes. "Miss, what happened?" The noble woman tugged at her long gown, her delicate body shivering. Clearly, she had not recovered from the fright just now. "I'm fine." But after calming down, the noble woman said, "It's probably some water beast that ran into the reeds." The leader of the guards said, "This subordinate did not handle this matter well and caused Miss to be frightened. Please punish me." The noble woman shook her head. "Forget it. You have limited manpower. It's inevitable that you'll be negligent. Return to your post immediately." The leader of the guards glanced at the reeds and said, "Why don't I order someone to sweep the reeds? If the aquatic beast is poisonous, it will be a hidden danger." "Forget it. We'll depart tomorrow. There's no need to waste time here. Return to your post." The noble woman shook her head. The leader of the guards no longer insisted and led his men away. After they left, the noble woman's calm face suddenly became cold, and her eyes were filled with killing intent. "Xiaotao! Secretly kill the perverted thief in the reeds. I've already injured him. Remember, clean your hands and feet. Don't leave any blood behind." When the maid heard this, she was shocked. Just now, the young miss actually encountered a perverted thief? This was no small matter. The young miss had a noble status. If it was said that she had encountered a pervert while bathing, it would be hard to avoid being speculated and criticized by others. It would be bad for her reputation. Most importantly, the young miss had a very important engagement. If the news reached the fiancé's ears, it would be troublesome. Therefore, the young miss acted as if nothing had happened and sent the guards away. Xiao Tao's face turned cold. What a perverted thief! How dare he set his sights on the young miss? "Don't worry, miss. I'll leave his corpse intact." With a cold snort, Xiao Tao walked into the reeds to look for the perverted thief that her young miss had mentioned. The reeds weren't big, and after looking around, there was no trace of him. After the time it took to drink half a cup of tea, the noble woman frowned. "Nothing? Are you sure? This matter can't be leaked." Her engagement was very important to her future and her family. It was only because of luck that it was made possible. She couldn't allow this matter to reach the fiancé's ears. Xiao Tao nodded. "Yes, I'm sure. Could it be that young miss killed him with a palm strike, and his corpse sank to the bottom of the lake?" "Dead." The noble woman pondered, recalling the scene just now. After a while, she was a little uncertain. "The other party doesn't seem to have any cultivation. It's not impossible for me to kill him with that palm strike." Feeling uneasy, the noble woman hesitated for a while before giving up and going back. When she passed by the lake, her younger sister was still happily playing in the stream, humming a tuneless and light song. The noble woman was unhappy and said, "Why aren't you going ashore? The night is deep and the water is cold. If you fall sick, how are you going to explain it to father and mother?" The cute and pretty girl immediately stopped humming and swam back like a deer. The noble woman stared at her and returned to the tent unhappily. "Oh, I made a mistake again and made you unhappy." The cute and pretty girl blamed herself. "I'm so stupid." The cute and pretty girl knocked her head in annoyance. She was dumbfounded for a while, but she quickly became optimistic again. She muttered to herself, "Since you came to call me, doesn't it mean that you care about me? Ah, I almost forgot about your kindness. I must quickly go back and apologize." As she spoke, she clumsily climbed ashore. But all of a sudden, he caught a glimpse of a person in the water from the corner of his eye. The person was lurking weakly under the water. If an ordinary person met her, they would surely be frightened. However, the cute and pretty girl's reaction was slow. "Well, uncle, are you also swimming?" As she spoke, she put on a loose white robe and squatted by the lake. She rested her chin on her hands and looked at Suyu, who was swimming ashore. Suyu was startled, so he came out of the water and looked around. He felt a burning pain in his shoulder, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. That damned woman was really ruthless. If it wasn't for his strong body, that palm strike would have been enough to shatter his shoulder. As he looked at the silly girl in front of him, Suyu vigilantly retreated. "Well, uncle, where are you going?" the cute and pretty girl asked. "Are you a wandering old man?" Old man? Suyu was startled. He was only 2 or 3 years older than the girl in front of him, yet he was being addressed as an old man. "Ahem, I've been stranded here and have disturbed you. Goodbye." Suyu's body was weak, and his shoulder had been injured. Now that he had caught a cold, his body was even weaker. He urgently needed to find a place to warm himself. The cute and pretty girl hurriedly stood up and waved her hand at him. "Uncle, quickly come up. The water is so cold, so come back to the camp with me to warm yourself up." "Ah, is this little girl completely unguarded?" Suyu looked at the camp and asked hesitantly, "Miss, may I ask who you are?" The girl replied, "I'm from the Blue Mountain Ranges, Yuan family. Our Yuan family is famous for making elixirs. My father, my mother, and my sister love to help people. Come with me. My sister will surely be very happy." In her heart, her sister was beautiful, noble, and kind. She respected her most. "Miss, may I ask who you are?" Suyu asked. The girl patted her chest and said, "Hee, I'm the Yuan family's second miss, Yuan Inying." "Second miss?" Suyu's eyes lit up, and he was on the verge of tears. Since she had taken the initiative to save him, he wouldn't face any danger if he stayed with them. Suyu didn't hesitate any longer, so he stood up and followed Yuan Inying back to her tent. "You should warm yourself up while I ask my sister's maid for some food." Yuan Inying then ran out of the tent. After a short while, she came back with 2 pieces of jerky. Suyu was really hungry, as he hadn't eaten anything for a long time, so he quickly gobbled them down. Do you want more?" "I will go and ask for some more." Yuan Inying wore a sweet smile as she looked at Suyu, whose complexion had become much better. Suyu waved his hand at her and said, "No, I don't need it. It's already enough. Many thanks for saving me a meal, and I will surely repay it in the future." "I don't need it. It's just 2 pieces of jerky." Yuan Inying was slightly embarrassed, and when she saw Suyu's tattered clothes, she quickly said, "Uncle, please wait for a moment. I will go and find some clean clothes for you." Suyu nodded and looked at her as she left. All of a sudden, Suyu looked outside the tent and squinted his eyes. "Who is it?" Clatter. The sound of chaotic footsteps could be heard. For bodyguards, who were all armed with blades, rushed in and surrounded Suyu. At the same time, a maid opened the tent's flap and a tall, beautiful woman walked in with an ice-cold expression. It's no wonder that Inying asked for jerky. "It's really you." As she stared at Suyu, her expression became even colder. "Drag him out and kill him immediately." This woman wanted to kill Suyu without uttering a single word. Suyu didn't know this woman's identity, but he knew why she wanted to kill him. She had just taken a look at him, yet she wanted to kill him without any explanation. She was really cruel. As Suyu looked around, he discovered that the 4 bodyguards were just at the half-fairy realm. As for the noblewoman, she was just at the 3 crystals half-fairy realm. As for the maid, she was even lower, as she was only at the 1 crystal half-fairy realm. It wouldn't be difficult for him to use his soul flame to burn all of them to death. "Miss, before you kill him, shouldn't you think about the consequences first?" You didn't want to kill anyone, especially when there were so many of them. The noblewoman's pupils contracted, and her gaze became even colder. "Are you threatening me?" She assumed that Suyu planned to divulge the fact that he had seen her bathing. You can understand it that way. If you really want to try it, I don't mind doing it, Suyu said. Even though he was surrounded, he still wore a calm expression. It seemed like he was completely confident. When the noble woman saw his calm demeanor, she couldn't help but feel slightly afraid. Could it be that he was confident that he could divulge what had just happened before the blade struck him? There was a struggle in her eyes. Just as she was hesitating, a thin and weak figure came in. Luckily, the noble lady was almost hit by him. Ah, sister, why did you come here? Ah, why did the manor's guards also come here? Why are you pointing your blades at me? Yuan Yingying asked in surprise. The noble woman's body shivered, and she stared at Yuan Yingying. After a moment, she forced herself to calm down and said, Yingying, come with me. Outside the tent, the noble woman asked Yuan Yingying bluntly, What did he say to you just now? Yuan Yingying tilted her head and wondered, What does my sister want to know? He told me everything. What do you want to know? Yuan Yingying blinked her eyes. She assumed that Suyu had already told her about his identity and origins. Thud! The noble woman subconsciously took 2 steps back. Her body shivered, and she clenched her teeth. She was so infuriated that she trembled. Despicable and shameless perverted thief. You dared to use my sister to threaten me. It was obvious that she had misunderstood Suyu and had held back to inform her sister about this matter. Chapter 739. What did Big Sister say? What's wrong with you? Was it cold? I'll give the mink fur to Big Sister, Yuan Yingying hurriedly said. The noble woman's face turned cold. No need. The noble woman stared at Yuan Yingying with a conflicted look in her eyes. In the end, she said in a low voice, Don't tell anyone what he told you. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yuan Yingying didn't understand why her sister was angry. She just thought that she had unintentionally offended her sister, so she nodded like a chick pecking at grains. I won't tell anyone. I promise I won't. Don't worry. Humph, you're on your own. The noble woman coldly snorted and angrily returned to her tent. When he passed by Suyu's tent, he gave Suyu a deep look. The other party had obviously recognized the Yuan family's flag and had ulterior motives for sneaking into the convoy. Naturally, they wouldn't dare to announce what had happened tonight for the time being. As long as they didn't kill him rashly, there shouldn't be any problems. Once he returned to the Blue Mountain Ridge, he would find an opportunity to finish him off without anyone noticing. Miss, this is a barren mountain forest, and in front of us is the infamous demonic ape mountain range. The nearest human town is hundreds of thousands of miles away. Don't you think it's strange that an old man with no cultivation suddenly appeared here? The eyes of the maid Xiao Tao shone brightly. The noble woman had thought of this as well. The appearance of this perverted old man was indeed too strange. However, for the time being, she did not dare to act rashly. Even though she knew that this old man was a little strange, she could only endure it. Don't make any moves. Wait until we return to the Tsang mountain range, ordered the noble lady. In the tent, Suyu muttered to himself. The Yuan family was a family that specialized in refining elixirs, so they had a deeper understanding of medicinal theory. They should have a very detailed understanding of how to nourish one's physical body. He might even have the right medicinal pills. He might as well sneak into the Yuan clan's convoy and return to the Yuan clan. If not, he could enter the Blue Mountain Range. It was better than being in the middle of nowhere in the wilderness. As for the young mistress, who was filled with killing intent, Suyu did not pay much attention to her. If Yuan Yingying hadn't barged in, the eldest miss would have been the one lying on the floor. After a day of silence, the carriage set off the next morning. Suyu slept soundly in a small tent, which was just outside of Yuan Yingying's tent. Ever since the true dragon destroyed the world, he had never closed his eyes. His mind was exhausted, but after this nap he felt refreshed. He grabbed a set of clothes that Yuan Yingying had found. It was the uniform worn by the guards. In order to facilitate movement, it was soft, flexible, and had a certain level of defense. Suyu put it on easily and tied up his messy white hair with a wooden hairpin. He then tied his hair into a bun and let his white hair drape over his back. Looking into the mirror, Suyu was slightly startled. The old man in the mirror was thin, but extremely straight. His snow-white hair was neatly combed. His face was still as handsome as when he was young. Even though he had aged, he still had a certain charm to him. He looked completely different from an ordinary old man. He did not look like an old man with one foot in the grave. Instead, he looked like a sage-like expert. "Uncle, we're leaving!" The second young miss, Yuan Yingying, shouted sweetly from outside the tent. Suyu lifted the flap of the tent and crawled out. "Ah, who are you? Where's Uncle?" Yuan Yingying's small mouth opened in an exaggerated manner as she stared at the white-haired old man with a dumbfounded expression. She had an adorable and naive look on her face. Suyu couldn't help but smile. "Second young miss, have you already forgotten me? I'm the old man you picked up last night. My name is Su." Suyu suddenly realized that he still hadn't told Yuan Yingying about his name. Now that the Central Prefecture's king had set his eyes on him, he could no longer use his name. After mulling it over for a moment, Suyu uttered a name. "I'm Su Yuxian. You can just call me Old Su." Suyu revealed a faint smile. They were Su Yuxian, Suyu, Xia Jingyu, and Qin Xianer. Suyu had chosen a word for each of their names. This could be considered Suyu's remembrance of them. "So it's Uncle Su." Yuan Yingying heaved a sigh of relief when she heard his voice. She then started sizing Suyu up, her eyes filled with curiosity. "Su Yuxian? Uncle Su, are you really Yuxian? Will it rain?" Suyu couldn't help but chuckle. The second young miss was so innocent and pure that he couldn't help but think of Xianer. For a moment, the two of them overlapped. He couldn't help but feel tender affection for her in his heart. "Yingying, why aren't you getting on the carriage?" The carriage passed by, and the curtain was lifted. The young miss glanced down. When her gaze fell on Suyu, she was startled. She could not associate the sage-like and charming old man in front of her with the old lecher with disheveled hair who looked like a demon the night before. It was only when Suyu looked at her that she recognized him. Humph! With hatred in her heart, the first young mistress pulled down the bead curtain with a cold harumph. Yuan Yingying stuck out her tongue, waved her hand, and got into the carriage. As for Suyu, he was riding a horse with a young guard. When he sat on it, Suyu noticed that this horse was completely different from the horses in the Jinlong world. His body was filled with a power that he had never seen before. It was extremely powerful, and it was somewhat similar to a human's vital energy. "Humph, you haven't seen it before, have you? This is my Yuan family's 10,000 miles solitary horse. It's a famous first-grade demonic beast, and it can travel 100,000 miles in a day." The eldest young Mrs. Maid, Xiao Tao, was riding beside Suyu. When she saw Suyu curiously examining the horse he was sitting on, she sneered at him before leaving. A demonic beast? There was no such thing as a demonic beast in the Jinlong world. Powerful beasts were called ferocious beasts, while cultivators were called spiritual beasts. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. It seems like I must come up with a way to learn more about Jiuzhou's basic knowledge, Suyu thought to himself. The 10,000 miles solitary horse galloped forward, as if it was chasing the wind. In just 3 breaths' time, it had covered 10 miles. Such a speed was comparable to a 3 crystals half fairies. However, Suyu noticed that his position was a little strange. His mount was surrounded by the rest of the guards on all sides. Suyu obviously didn't think that they were protecting him. On the contrary, they were trying to surround him so that they could guard against him. Suyu didn't care about their actions, so he just rode peacefully. In just 2 hours, they had already traveled 10,000 miles and reached a pitch-black mountain range. The mountain range was so tall that it reached the clouds. It was extremely steep, and it was densely packed. If one looked at it from afar, they would feel uneasy and uneasy. The carriages stopped in front of the Black Mountain Range. Su Yu's sharp senses detected that the atmosphere had changed. The guards were all tensed up, and it could be seen from their contracted pupils and heavy breathing. "We have arrived at the demonic ape mountain range. Take out the heavenly fragrance pill." The leader, Ah Ching, waved his hand and took out a crossbow from his back. It was completely black, and it was obviously a high-grade divine artifact. The guard leading Su Yu urged his horse forward and solemnly took out a bottle of elixirs from his pocket. There was only one of them, and it was completely pink and emitted an intoxicating fragrance. It smelled like a woman's body odor. It was fragrant, but not strong. Ah Ching took the elixir and placed it in the crossbow. He then aimed at the Black Mountain Range and shot it to the right. The powerful force of the shot caused the elixir to be shot deep into the Black Mountain Range and fall into a depression. The carriages immediately became silent. Everyone pricked up their ears and stared at the Black Mountain Range without blinking. They even tried to suppress their breathing sounds. In the dead silence, everyone's nerves were extremely tensed. Squeak! Squeak! In the deathly silence, a strange cry suddenly reverberated through the mountains. It was sharp and ear-piercing, and it suddenly resounded in the silent mountains, causing one to tremble with fear. At the same time, a giant black shadow flashed through the Black Mountain Range and pounced toward the heavenly fragrance pill. When the leader, Ah Ching, saw this, his face lit up and he shouted in a low voice, "Let's go! Hurry up and follow us!" He then retreated to the carriages and horses, closely guarding the strongest people in the group. The carriages and horses tried their best to suppress their movements, and everyone held their breaths as they quickly passed through the Black Mountain Range. Su Yu was puzzled. The strange sound just now seemed like the cry of a monkey or an ape. "May I ask what happened?" Su Yu lowered his voice to ensure that his voice would not travel more than 3 meters away. The guard carrying him replied, "It's the demonic ape from the demonic ape mountain range. This place used to be an ancient road, and it was bustling with activity. However, a demonic ape suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Not only was it agile, but it was also a level 2 demonic beast, which was equivalent to a level 2 fairy. It occupied the surrounding mountains and robbed people. From then on, this place was renamed the Demonic Ape Mountain Range." Su Yu smacked his lips. A monkey was robbing people? Not only did this demonic ape rob people's belongings, but it also killed all of the traveling merchants. Moreover, the most terrifying thing about this demonic ape is that it even likes to kidnap human women and bring them back to its cave to have sex with them. Many human women have been brutally raped by it, and its evil reputation is really abhorrent. Su Yu slightly furrowed his brows, as this was the first time he had heard of a non-human creature raping human women. "If that's the case, why don't we kill it? The Blue Mountain Range can't even find a level 3 fairy, can it?" Su Yu asked. The guard on the horse replied angrily, "Why not? The Blue Mountain Range's 3 great families have joined hands to suppress the demonic ape more than once. However, the demonic ape is cunning, and it uses the demonic ape mountain range's complex terrain to hide. The demonic ape mountain range covers a radius of 100,000 miles, and it is like a maze. Once you hide within it, it will be like looking for a needle in a haystack." He then added, "Our fairy realm cultivators were either unable to find them, or some of them were killed by the demonic ape's sneak attacks. In fact, there was even a young female fairy realm cultivator who was abducted, and her whereabouts are still unknown. It seems like she was also abducted into the demonic ape's cave and became its sex object." As he spoke, the guard on the horse couldn't help but pound his thigh in anger. It's laughable that the Blue Mountain Range's human race is being bullied by a demonic ape. Many of our women have been raped, yet we are powerless to save them. Su Yu slightly furrowed his brows when he heard this. The group of horses was galloping forward, and everyone was trying their best to urge their horses to leave the demonic ape mountain range as quickly as possible. The demonic ape was too dangerous, and if it discovered that the heavenly fragrance pill wasn't a woman, it would become enraged and discover them. After all, their whole group might not even be a match for the demonic ape. The group of horses moved forward in an orderly manner, and they quickly entered the demonic ape mountain range's core region. As long as they could pass through this region, they would be able to leave the mountain safely and enter the blue mountain range's boundary. Chirp! However, an ape's cry, which made one's hair stand on end, reverberated through the mountains. Chapter 740. Not good. We've been tricked. The devil ape wasn't lured away. Instead, it followed us all the way to the center of the devil ape mountain range. Leader Ah Ching's expression changed drastically. If he was at the periphery of the demonic ape mountain range, he could still turn back and seize the opportunity to escape. However, the terrain of the demonic ape mountain range was complex. How could they escape in a short time? He had long heard that this devil ape was cunning, and it turned out to be true. But what surprised Ah Ching was how did the demonic ape see through them and follow them? The terrain of the demonic ape mountain range was complex. Although it was advantageous to the demonic apes, it was also advantageous to them. How did the devil ape discover them? Gigi, suddenly, a one-zhang tall black shadow leaped out from a mountain peak. It spread its 4 limbs like a giant bird and pounced on the carriage with extreme precision. Bang! Under the heavy pressure, the wheels of the carriage sank into the ground and could no longer move. When Suyu raised his head and looked over, he saw a giant ape covered in black fur. It was the size of 2 human beings, and its limbs were extremely long and muscular. It had a huge head covered in long, fluffy black hair, and a pair of eyes that contained anthropomorphic cruelty and ferocity. It swaggered to the top of the carriage and glanced at the guards around it with contempt. The guards sucked in a breath of cold air, and many of them felt their limbs go soft. As they faced the terrifying demonic ape, their minds were filled with the image of its ferocious name, which had slaughtered dozens of fairies. If it weren't for the fact that their leader was still around, they would have scattered in all directions. Don't panic. Let's go together and save the first miss and second miss. Ah Ching was the closest to the carriage. She took the lead and tapped the ground with the tip of her toes on the horse's back. She flew to the window at a low altitude. He exerted force with both his fists and suddenly struck the side of the carriage, creating a human-sized hole. "Miss, come out." Ah Ching shouted, but at this moment, a black shadow whipped over at an extremely fast speed. Ah Ching's expression changed, and he subconsciously took out his high-grade divine artifact, long saber, to block. Zhang, the long saber broke, and 5 deep grooves appeared on Ah Ching's chest. He flew backward and smashed into the stone wall. In a breath's time, he was injured by the devil ape's palm strike. If the leader was seriously injured, what would happen to the rest of the guards? The guards who surrounded him were instantly sent flying in all directions like pebbles. Miserable shrieks filled the air. When he took a closer look, he discovered that the 8 3 crystals half-fairy realm guards were severely injured. As for the remaining 2 crystals half-fairy realm experts, they would all be killed in an instant. Oh! The demonic ape stood on the roof of the carriage like a human and patted its chest with both hands. Its fierce eyes flickered with a mocking light. He was mocking the weakness of the human race. Then the demonic ape lowered its head, and with a flick of its long arm, the roof of the carriage was lifted, revealing 2 shivering women inside. "Big sister, I'm scared." Yuan Yingying was so scared that she started crying. She had also heard about the devil ape's evil reputation. However, the eldest miss was even more afraid. She was cold and arrogant, but now her face was deathly pale, and her eyes were filled with terror. Her delicate body was shivering, and she didn't dare to move. "Gigi!" The devil ape thumped its chest excitedly, and its eyes emitted lustful light. It stretched its arms and hugged a woman in each of its arms. Ching was furious. "Let go of the young lady. I'll fight it out with you." He tried to use his angry roar to scare the demonic ape. However, this demon ape was extremely intelligent. It stared at Ching in disdain, raised its head to the sky, and laughed maniacally. Then it tapped the ground with its feet, and its black body leaped into the air like a giant bird, flying toward the mountains. Once it escaped into the mountains, it would be impossible to find the eldest miss and the second miss. They would become the devil ape's women, and they would be tortured by it. Yuan Yingying was so scared that she started to cry. She hit the devil ape's arms with all her might. "Let go of me. Someone save me and my big sister." The eldest miss was so scared that her face turned deathly pale. She almost fainted, and she couldn't even speak. Ching, who was watching the devil ape escape, couldn't even chase after it. His eyes were bloodshot. However, at this moment, a majestic and indifferent voice reverberated in the mountains. "Evil creature, considering that it wasn't easy for you to cultivate, I gave you a chance to repent even though you have a bad reputation. However, I didn't expect that you wouldn't repent, and you would bring disaster to the human world. Since I'm passing by today, I'll kill you and rid the world of evil." The unfathomable voice that suddenly appeared caused everyone to be startled. Then, a scene that shocked them even more appeared. The devil ape, who had leaped into the air and was about to leap into the mountains, suddenly let out a miserable shriek. It let go of its hands and hugged its head, howling crazily as if it was suffering from extreme pain. Its ferocious eyes were filled with fright and terror. It bore the pain and stomped on the mountain, and it turned into a black shadow that fled into the mountains. The two misses of the Yuan family who had just escaped death circulated their vital energy and flew back to the group of horses. The eldest miss, who had just recovered from the shock, was panting heavily with Ching's support. As for Yuan Yingying, she wiped away her tears and knelt down to the ground gratefully. "Thank you, Senior. Thank you for saving my life. Yingying will never forget it." The eldest miss also reacted at this moment. She put her palms together and knelt down to express her gratitude. "Thank you, Senior. Thank you for saving my life. I'll never forget it." Yuan Yingying expressed her gratitude sincerely, while the eldest miss was a little scheming. She didn't know whether the devil ape was dead or alive, and she wondered if it would come out again to take revenge. If she could ask the senior to come with her, this trip would be foolproof. This was especially the case when the devil ape was attacked. Even though she was close to it, she felt a terrifying destructive power which caused even her soul to feel a burning pain. Such a miraculous technique shocked and awed the eldest miss. That person was surely a peerless expert. At the very least, she didn't know anyone who could injure the devil ape mountain without anyone noticing. "It's just a small matter, so you don't need to thank me. Quickly chase after that evil creature. After it's injured, it will probably escape back to its cave, so you can take advantage of that opportunity to save the other women," the faint voice said. The eldest Mrs. Gaze shifted as she asked, "Senior, won't you come with us?" The faint voice replied, "There's no need. That evil creature won't live for more than an hour, so it won't be able to harm anyone. You can go ahead." The eldest miss was delighted when she heard this. She put her palms together and kowtowed to the voice. "Thank you, Senior. Go ahead." The faint voice faded away. Suyu, who was on the horse's back, slowly opened his eyes. His complexion, which had just recovered, was now slightly pale. His body was too weak, and it would be a burden for his soul to leave and return to his body. When the faint voice disappeared completely, the eldest miss stood up. Delight appeared in her eyes as she said, "Yuan family's guards, this is your chance to make a contribution. Follow me and kill the demonic ape." As a matter of fact, the guards didn't need the eldest miss's reminder, as they already knew the significance of this trip. After killing the demonic ape, they wouldn't even need to consider the rewards, honor, and qualifications that they would get when they returned to the Blue Mountain Range. Moreover, the demonic ape had plundered the area for dozens of years, which meant that it had plundered many treasures. Even if they could just get a small portion of it, it would be more than what they would get if they worked hard as guards for 5 years. The group of horses and carriages were full of fighting spirit as they chased after the demonic ape. After 2 hours in an inconspicuous black mountain range, they found a hidden underground cave. They could faintly sense the demonic ape's fiendish aura in the cave, as well as the voices of human women. The group was overjoyed, so they immediately entered the cave. The underground cave was quite spacious, and its floor was covered with wild beasts' furs. It was quite comfortable. All kinds of dried meat hung on the wall, which emitted a fragrant aroma. There were also many fruits in the mountain forest, which were plentiful. 3 young women were hugging each other in a corner of the cave. They were shivering as they looked at Su Yu and the others, who had just barged into the cave. "Put some clothes on them and comfort them," the eldest miss ordered, while she looked at the lifeless demonic ape in the center of the cave. Her pretty eyes flickered as she said, "It's really as Senior said. This demonic ape won't live for long. Ah Ching, tie the demonic ape and bring it back to the Blue Mountain Range," the eldest miss said. Ah Ching licked his lips as he thought, "This is the legendary demonic ape. It's the demonic ape that gave many of the Blue Mountain Range's factions a headache. After all, if they killed it, the Yuan family would surely become famous in the Blue Mountain Range." Moreover, the demonic ape's entire body was a treasure, especially its demonic core, which was an important ingredient for many elixirs. For sturdy guards immediately pounced over and tied the demonic ape's corpse. While the group was busy, the eldest miss furrowed her brows. There weren't any other treasures in the cave besides spiritual fruits. According to the records, the demonic ape had plundered many treasures. Moreover, the number of women who had been kidnapped was far more than just 3. After all, there were probably some women who couldn't bear such humiliation and ended up committing suicide. But a monkey wouldn't have spent all of these treasures, would it? Where did all of these treasures go? Su Yu had the same question in his mind as he carefully examined his surroundings. The cave didn't seem natural, and there were several hidden areas that seemed to have been carved by someone. All of a sudden, Su Yu noticed a fine black needle beside his feet. If Su Yu didn't have sharp eyesight, he wouldn't have noticed its existence. When he sniffed it, a pungent smell assaulted his nostrils, and his mind became heavy. However, it was fortunate that he had the divine 9-dragon cauldron, so he quickly sobered up. What a powerful smell! It can even affect one's mind, Su Yu muttered as he calmly put the black needle into his sleeves. "Ying, let me ask you something." Su Yu walked over to her and asked, "Is there anyone in the Blue Mountain Range or its vicinity who is proficient in the study of poisons? A poison that could control one's soul and was even targeted at fairies wasn't an ordinary poison technique." Yuan Ying blinked her eyes and asked, "Study of poisons? Uncle Su, are you talking about our Yuan family? We are an alchemist family, so we must understand pharmacology. Study of poisons is also a part of pharmacology." "An alchemist family?" Su Yu squinted his eyes and asked, "Apart from the Yuan family?" "There are many alchemist factions in the Blue Mountain Range, but only the Elixir Production Alliance can rival our Yuan family. Their elixirs are more amazing than ours," Yuan Ying said. When she had just finished speaking, she heard a soft rebuke. "You are boosting others' morale and belittling our own. Since when was my Yuan family's elixir production any weaker than the Elixir Production Alliance's?" She was quite displeased that she hadn't found any of the treasures. Yuan Ying shrank her neck back, but she still wasn't willing to accept this. She then muttered in a low voice, "It was the Elixir Production Alliance that was stronger." "The Elixir Production Alliance?" Su Yu muttered softly. After 4 hours, they had finished packing everything, and they all carried the demonic ape's corpse as they left the demonic ape mountain range. After 3 days, a giant city stretched across the horizon like a giant beast. Its scale wasn't any smaller than any of the cities that Suyu had seen while he was chasing after the Blood Emperor. In fact, it wasn't any smaller than the whole Jinlong world. Chapter 741. Only ranked 100? Suyu was slightly surprised. You didn't expect that he would be teleported from the central prefecture to the 18 blessed and heavenly lands through the spatial vortex. Back in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, Suyu had interacted with many people from the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. For example, the Red Blood Palaces, Shangguan Qinger, the Purple Cloud Palaces, Lu Qi, and the puppet-making expert Yu Tianxi. Of course, there was also Suyu's unforgettable enemy, Gu Taishu. Both times he had fought with his clone, but he had never met his main body. Xiao Qin did not know if he would run into him in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. Suyu shook his head and got rid of his thoughts, then followed the Yuan family to the city. Get off the horse. Qing informed the Yuan family to come and pick them up. The young mistress got off the carriage. Qing went to the front of the city alone. There was a majestic palace there, and outside the palace there were people from the Yuan family standing guard. Young mistress and second mistress are back. Send a message to the family immediately and tell them to use the extreme shadow crane to welcome them, Qing said to the Yuan family guards outside. The guard immediately entered the hall and activated the communication array. The city was too big, and it was as big as the Jinlong world. Even if he gave up on the solitary horse and traveled by foot, it would still take him half a day to reach the center of the city. Therefore, he asked the Yuan family to send a flying demonic beast, the extreme shadow crane. The speed of this crane was extremely fast. In less than 2 hours, it would be able to reach the Yuan family. Uncle Su, you don't have a home to return to. So, why don't you come with us to the Yuan family? Yuan Yingying pulled Suyu's hand and looked at him with a pleading gaze. As they chatted along the way, he and Suyu hit it off quite well, and their relationship improved day by day. He was very reluctant to see Suyu leave. However, before Suyu could speak, the eldest miss said, Yingying, you're messing around again. Mr. Su has other important matters to attend to, so how can he allow you to act like a spoiled child? Only then would it be convenient for him to kill Suyu without anyone noticing. Suyu looked at the eldest miss with a profound gaze, then said calmly, It's all right. I can deal with my matter later. You. The eldest young miss' eyes turned cold as she felt like she was going crazy. How dare this thief barge into the Yuan family? However, she couldn't do anything to him, for she was afraid that he would reveal what had happened that day. Oh, that's great. Big sister, did you hear that? Uncle Su agreed to marry Yingying. Yuan Yingying was elated. The eldest miss snorted softly and waited quietly. 2 hours later, the clear cry of a crane came from the horizon. 10 gigantic white cranes flew over at high speed. His speed was so fast that it was comparable to a level 5 ferry's, and it had already reached the level of a middle stage ferry. Each crane was controlled by a member of the Yuan family. Suyu was curious. What do those people do? Yuan Yingying asked with a strange expression. Uncle Su hasn't seen it before? They are beast tamers who can control demonic beasts with their mind energy. People who have this kind of ability are very rare. Our Yuan family spent a lot of money to hire 5 one-star beast tamers. There are less than 10 beast tamers in the entire Tsongshan city. Beast tamer? Yet another novelty. However, there was an extra person on one of the cranes. It was a young man dressed in embroidered robes with an extraordinary bearing. His appearance was ordinary and his figure was average. However, he had a confident smile on his face, and his temperament was outstanding, as if he had been in a position of power for a long time. Haha, Sister Bai, you're finally back. The young man in embroidered robes dismounted from the white crane and strode over. His eyes were fixed on the first miss, and there was no one else around. The first miss furrowed her brows and asked, Xiaoyin, why did you follow me here to pick up someone from the Yuan family? Zhao Yin seemed as if he didn't notice the first missed displeasure as he smiled and said, "Don't be like this, Sister Bai. After all, we have almost become a family." The first Mrs. expression became ice cold. "Watch your words. I, Yuan Wanbi, don't have any relationship with you. Don't say things that will cause misunderstandings. Moreover, please call me by my full name, especially in front of your fiancé." The first miss was quite merciless. Zhao Yin was startled by her words, and he couldn't help but feel a little angry. However, he didn't dare to show it in front of everyone. After suppressing his anger with great difficulty, Zhao Yin acted as if he had just noticed Yuan Yingying. "Oh, Yingying, you also came back. It's good that you're fine." Yuan Yingying clasped her hands together and bit her lips as she lowered her head and hid behind Su Yu. She wasn't shy at all. Su Yu saw a flash of sadness on her face, but it quickly disappeared. As far as he could remember, Yuan Yingying was always optimistic and naive. Su Yu couldn't help but shake his head as he examined Zhao Yin's expression. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Zhao Yin wasn't interested in his fiancée at all. Instead, he was fawning over his future sister-in-law, Yuan Wanbi. Zhao Yin had been snubbed by Yuan Wanbi, and Yuan Yingying was still avoiding him. This made him lose face. "I won't see you off. See you later." Zhao Yin waved his hand at her. He had come to see them off into the city. Yuan Wanbi glanced at him calmly, then stepped onto the white crane and flew away. Her maid, Xiao Tao, followed closely behind her. After everyone had left, Zhao Yin looked at Yuan Wanbi's back with an ice-cold gaze. "Humph, slut. In the past, you always fawned on me, but now you're speaking to me so coldly? You really changed your attitude quickly." He was quite confused as to why Yuan Wanbi had changed so much. Before she had left, Yuan Wanbi had secretly met with her sister's fiancé behind her sister's back. The two of them had been secretly chatting for a long time. Apart from pledging to be her husband, they did everything they could, such as holding hands, hugging, and kissing. It could be said that their feelings for each other were quite deep. Yuan Wanbi had taken a fancy to Zhao Yin's status, so she had taken the initiative to please him. However, when she came back this time, she seemed like a completely different person, treating him like a stranger. This made Zhao Yin confused and angry. His gaze flickered, and he walked over to where Xiao Tao's feet had been. A tiny syringe seemed to have fallen to the ground unintentionally. Zhao Yin picked it up and skillfully opened it. He snorted and said, "I want to see what happened to your body." He crushed the needle with his index and middle fingers, then rolled up a piece of paper. If Yuan Wanbi had been here, she would have surely recognized that it had been written by her maid Xiao Tao. Did she secretly go to the White Cloud Lake? A grave look appeared in Zhao Yin's eyes. Why would she go there? That is the territory of the Shangguan family. Zhao Yin's expression became grave when he mentioned the Shangguan family. The Shangguan family's influence was enormous, and it covered a circumference of hundreds of millions of miles. It ruled over 9 mountain ranges, 7 mountains, 6 caves, and 5 villas. The Blue Mountain Range was just one of the 9 mountain ranges. But did this have anything to do with Yuan Wanbi's change in temperament? As he continued to read, his expression suddenly changed and became gloomy. It was a secret record of Su Yu's assault on Yuan Wanbi. "How dare you touch my woman, old thing!" Zhao Yin's eyes shone with a cold light, but soon after, a bright light flashed in her eyes. Since that's the case, why didn't Bai kill him and instead brought him back to the Yuan clan? This caused Zhao Yin to notice an inkling. Zhao Yin was well aware of Yuan Wanbi's temperament, and she knew that she wasn't a soft-hearted woman. Since Su Yu dared to violate her, then it was impossible for him to still be alive. Now, not only was Su Yu safe and sound, but he had even been brought back to the Yuan family. Zhao Yin seemed to have sensed something, and his eyes gradually narrowed. Could it be that the old bastard has something on by her, causing her to have no choice but to obey his orders and even pretend to sever all ties with me? It had to be said that he was indeed smart and had deduced half of the truth. Good, you old thing. You're just a bag of old bones. Yet you still dare to covet my woman. Zhao Yin only felt that his head was green, and his heart was filled with hatred. In the sky on the white crane, Yuan Wanbi asked calmly, "Did you follow my instructions and leave a note behind?" Xiao Tao, who was beside her, nodded and said, "I followed your instructions and shifted the blame to Zhao Yin, making him think that it was that old bastard who was causing trouble for you. That's why you decided to sever all ties with him. How could he know that you were already engaged to the Shangguan family's young master? How could a small family like the Zhao family compete with a colossal family like the Shangguan family?" Yuan Wanbi was a very scheming woman. Her maid, Xiao Tao, was also very scheming. "Zhao Yin only gave me a small favor, yet he wants me to become a spy for him and monitor your every move? How foolish! Let's see how Zhao Yin will deal with that old bastard." Xiao Tao sneered. It turned out that Xiao Tao had only pretended to be a spy, while she was still Yuan Wanbi's subordinate. "But, young miss, wouldn't it be too risky to let a fifth person know that you were disrespected? If Zhao Yin spread this matter, and the Shangguan family learned about it, it would be troublesome. After all, the Shangguan family attaches great importance to virtue, so you mustn't be careless." Yuan Wanbi curled up the corners of her mouth. Based on my understanding of him, he loves his face as much as his life. So, how could he let an outsider know that his secret lover was violated? Don't worry, we will just watch a good show. Xiao Tao revealed a faint smile. 2 hours later, in the Yuan family's residence. The Yuan family's residence was extremely large, and it occupied 1/100th of the Blue Mountain Range's territory. It was comparable to the Jinlong world's Shenyue Island. There were many people in the residence, and it was bustling with activity. The houses were neatly arranged, and they were as grand and magnificent as the courtyard of an imperial palace. Every corner of the residence had a formation that gathered the world's spiritual energy. This was why the spiritual energy within the residence was denser than the outside world. As Suyu lowered his head and looked at it, he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. As expected of Juzhou, even a single residence was so exaggerated. "Come with me to pay your respects to the family master. All of you contributed greatly in killing the demonic ape." Yuan Wanbi landed on the ground and led a group of guards to pay their respects to the family master. The guards who followed her were all excited. Suyu praised her inwardly. Although Yuan Wanbi was a scheming woman, she had a good grasp of how to conduct herself. At least, this group of guards was deeply grateful to her. As for Yuan Yingying, Suyu couldn't help but sigh inwardly. It was obvious that Yuan Yingying was also in the same group, so she should have also contributed greatly. However, the only person the guards were grateful to was Yuan Wanbi. With her temperament, she probably wouldn't have a good time in the family. The Yuan family's master had already gathered the core members of the Yuan family and was waiting in the meeting hall. He was in his early 40s and had a refined look in his eyes. "Father, uncles." Yuan Wanbi was dignified and generous. Her actions were natural and proper, and her words were appropriate. Most of the older generation in the room admired her, and even though a few of them were jealous of the family master, they couldn't find fault with Yuan Wanbi. This woman was really perfect and flawless. Her conduct, martial path talent, appearance, intelligence were all top-notch, and no one could find fault with her. "Haha, my 2 precious daughters have come back." The Yuan family's master stood up and welcomed them. He didn't care about the solemn occasion, and he held one of them in each hand. "Father, I missed you so much." Yuan Yingying kissed the Yuan family's master's cheek affectionately. She was just acting according to her nature, and she didn't have any ulterior motives. Chapter 742. Yuan Yingying was a commoner's daughter who had been left behind by the Yuan family's patriarch. 2 years ago, her birth mother had passed away from illness, and she had no home to return to. Patriarch Yuan had brought her back to the Yuan family and announced her identity. At that time, there was a lot of resistance. They believed that her bloodline was impure and that her status was unjustifiable, so she couldn't stay in the Yuan family. It was the Yuan family's patriarch who stood his ground and allowed Yuan Yingying to become the Yuan family's second Mississippi. Family master, let's get down to business. I heard that the eldest miss is quite outstanding, and she even led her guards to kill our Blue Mountain Range's greatest threat, the demonic ape. An old man in his 60s interrupted Yuan Yingying's intimate conversation with her father and smiled at Yuan Wanbi. The Yuan family had let go of the two ladies' hands and returned to his seat as the family head. His face was filled with gratification and joy. Wanbi, you've done well this time. You've made the Yuan family proud. Men, bring the devil ape up. The 3-meter-tall demonic ape was strenuously pushed up by 4 burly men. Staring at the ferocious demonic ape, all the uncles in the house looked at it. They were both surprised and gratified. They exclaimed in admiration, "This is the evil demonic ape that wreaked havoc in the Blue Mountain Range. We've paid a great price all these years, but we didn't expect to die in the hands of Mississippi. Young Miss has made a great contribution this time. Your contribution cannot go unnoticed." All of them were praising Yuan Wanbi. Yuan Yingying was ignored on purpose, so she stood alone beside Suyu. Yuan Yingying bit her red lips as she looked at her elder sister, who was the center of attention. There was envy and bitterness in her eyes. Yuan Wanbi replied modestly, "Uncles, you must be joking. How could Wanbi kill the demonic ape with her meager cultivation? It was a powerful senior who was passing by who injured her and instructed me to lead a group of people to chase after her. That's how we managed to bring her corpse back. Wanbi really didn't do anything." These words sounded modest, but she pointed out something else. An expert was guiding her. Suyu wasn't just instructing her, but the whole team. Yet, Yuan Wanbi had taken care of everything, and it seemed like she was somehow related to that expert. As expected, the surroundings fell silent. As a matter of fact, the demonic ape hadn't been killed by Yuan Wanbi, and they knew that it had most likely been an accident. Hearing that there was an expert helping them, everyone was relieved. The Yuan family's master's eyes flickered as he asked, "Wanbi, why did that expert save you for no reason? Do you know who he is? Are you acquainted with the Yuan family?" The fact that he was able to kill the demonic ape meant that his strength was no small matter. At the very least, the Yuan family's head was not confident that he could eliminate that cunning demonic ape. Yuan Wanbi furrowed her brows and shook her head. "Senior didn't show himself, and we only heard his voice. We didn't see him." The eyes of the Yuan clan's patriarch flickered. "Without showing his face, he heavily injured the demonic ape and left it half dead in front of you?" Many people in the room narrowed their eyes. What kind of divine ability was this? Yuan family's master pondered. There are only 2 possibilities for him to be able to do this. First, his realm is too high, and he killed the demonic ape across space. The second is a soul body. In other words, it could be a senior divine master. These words caused the atmosphere in the room to suddenly freeze. Regardless of which possibility it was, such an expert was not someone they could afford to offend. Especially the second possibility, Almighty Divine Master. This was because those who could leave their bodies with their souls were definitely Almighty Divine Masters, or even stronger. It's a pity that we weren't able to invite this senior to our Yuan family as a guest, the Yuan family's master said regretfully. His gaze lingered on Yuan Wanbi, as if he was waiting for her to learn something. Yuan Wanbi's eyes flickered, as if she had suddenly understood something. "Father, it seems like that senior was in the vicinity of the demonic ape mountain all along, but he didn't kill the demonic ape. It was only when I ran into danger and was captured that he attacked." She was implying that the senior had attacked for her sake. She had intentionally overlooked the fact that Yuan Yingying had also been captured at the same time. Moreover, I found his voice somewhat familiar, and I felt as if I had heard it somewhere before. Yuan Wanbi wasn't lying about this, as she really did find his voice familiar. Suyu, who was beside her, couldn't help but stroke his nose as he thought to himself, "Of course you found his voice familiar. Didn't that voice belong to me?" Even though Suyu had tried to lower his voice, he still couldn't conceal it. Well, the eyes of the Yuan family's members lit up. Could it be that the senior that she was familiar with had killed the demonic ape for her sake? Exchanging a few glances with each other, everyone's faces hid a faint hint of happiness. Yuan Wanbi had brought many pleasant surprises to the Yuan family, and if they could befriend a divine master because of her, then besides the Shangguan family, who would dare to provoke the Yuan family? Wanbi, no matter what, you did well this time. You brought back the demonic ape and brought honor to the Yuan family, and you even got to know an expert. The Yuan family's master had a smile on his face. The Yuan family has always been clear about rewards and punishments, so you should be rewarded handsomely. Yuan Wanbi rejoiced inwardly when she heard him. Even her father, who was the family's master, couldn't mess around with the family's rewards. Thus, as the family's master's daughter, she had to follow the rules and perform meritorious deeds for the family. Yuan Wanbi has made a third-grade meritorious deed, so she will be granted a chance to cultivate in the elixir pool. She will be awarded 2 7-star precious crystals. She will be awarded 20 crystals. The elixir pool? Yuan Wanbi was overjoyed. The elixir pool was the Yuan family's top-notch secret land, and precious elixirs were placed there all year round. As such, the water in the pool was filled with elixir's power, and if one cultivated in it once, it was highly possible for one to break through to the next level. As a 3 crystals half-fairy, Yuan Wanbi might even be able to break through to the fairy realm. As for the 7-star precious crystals, they were extremely precious elixirs that were refined from demonic cores, and they were extremely beneficial for one's breakthrough. As for the last 20 crystals, they were still quite rich. She was quite satisfied with her gains from this trip. Ah Ching, you have made a meritorious deed by leading the team, so you will be awarded 2 jade spiral elixirs and 10 crystals. As for the other guards, they will be awarded 1 jade spiral elixir and 1 crystal. After everyone had been rewarded, the Yuan family's master looked at his youngest daughter, Yuan Yingying. A tender look appeared in his eyes, but he still wore a stern expression. As for Yuan Yingying, since she led the team together with Yuan Wanbi, she will be given the same reward. She will be granted a chance to enter the elixir pool. However, before he could finish his words, he was met with opposition. A white-haired old man stroked his beard and said, "Patriarch, there are less than 2 months before the Yuan clan's grand competition begins. The top 10 all have a chance to enter the Dan pool. If the Dan pool's medicinal energy is depleted too much now, causing the Dan pool to be insufficient for 10 people 2 months from now, I'm afraid many of the branch families will be dissatisfied. Wanbi has always been respected in the family, and she's the proud daughter of the clan. She's also made a great contribution this time. So even if she joins Dan Chi, the branch families won't have any objections." But Yingying, the gray-haired old man, sighed. "Forgive me for being blunt, but if she's like Dan Chi, it'll be difficult to convince the others. Moreover, Miss Wanbi deserves the most credit this time. As for Yingying, she was just following them, so she doesn't really count." Seeing the family head's face turn dark, the white-haired old man said, "If the family head really wants to reward us, we can do it in the family competition in a month. When Yingying obtains a ranking, we will be able to shut the branch family's mouth." Everyone agreed with what he said. They spoke one after another, treating Yuan Yingying as an outsider. The Yuan family head's face was gloomy. He was under immense pressure. "Father, Grandpa Pijuan is right. It's all my sister's credit. I didn't do anything, so I can't ask for a reward." Yuan Yingying stepped forward and opened her bright eyes wide. When the white-haired old man heard her, he praised her. "Yingying, you're quite sensible. Not bad. Grandfather has high hopes for you." Since she was already in such a state, What else could the Yuan family head do? Fine. Ying, you should go and cultivate properly. You must strive for a ranking in the competition. The Yuan family head looked at his daughter, who was being ostracized. He had already tried his best to take care of her, but the family didn't approve of her, so she couldn't do anything. Yuan Ying went back to Su Yu's side. Her body shivered slightly, and her small hands, which were hidden in her sleeves, were still shivering. She wasn't angry, nor was she infuriated. She was just sad. Fine, the meeting is adjourned. The Yuan family head's interest waned. However, at this moment, an illusory voice drifted over from the sky. So it's here. The abrupt words startled everyone present. The Yuan family head's residence was heavily guarded, so no one could intrude. Who is it? The Yuan family head stood up abruptly and looked around with his deep eyes. The illusory voice echoed once again. I just came here to verify whether that evil creature was eradicated or not. I was in a rush just now, so I came back to verify it. Since it's already dead, I won't stay here any longer. What? Is it that expert? The Yuan family head looked at Yuan Wanbi, who nodded at him with an excited expression. The Yuan family head was overjoyed. Senior, take care! He could faintly feel a wave of soul power which shocked him even more. It was obvious that an almighty divine master's soul body was in the vicinity. What's the matter? The illusory voice echoed. The Yuan family head said, Senior, I can't express my gratitude to you on behalf of the whole Yuan family for saving my 2 daughters. I hope that you can show yourself so that the Yuan family can repay your kindness. The Yuan family head was quite excited, as were the other family members. They all knew that whether or not they could befriend this almighty divine master would depend on this moment. There is no need for that. The Yuan family head was quite disappointed, but it was still reasonable. After all, an almighty divine master was such an existence that the Yuan family wouldn't be worthy of his attention. However, your daughter is quite lovable, and I got along well with her. I will come here often in the future. If I'm in a good mood, I can take her as my disciple and give her some pointers in her cultivation. The illusory voice's words made the Yuan family head ecstatic. Take her as a disciple? If such a relationship were to spread, who would dare to harm the Yuan family in the future? Wanbi, why don't you thank the senior? Defeating armies' face was flushed, and he was quite delighted. The other elders were also quite envious and gratified. Yuan Wanbi had really helped the Yuan family greatly. Yuan Wanbi's face became flushed, and she was quite excited. She smiled and bowed respectfully. Thank you, Senior. I won't let you down. However, before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by the illusory voice. Who are you? The sudden question caused everyone to freeze. Yuan Wanbi also froze, and the smile on her face froze. After the Yuan family's master calmed down, he said, Carefully, she is my beloved daughter, Yuan Wanbi. Senior, what do you mean? Oh, she is also your daughter. However, the daughter I am talking about is that little girl. What is her name? The illusory voice asked. Yuan Ying, who wore a bewildered look, was dumbfounded. All of a sudden, she was pushed by something, and she staggered to the center of the hall. Her? The whole hall became deathly silent. Was the divine abode referring to that bastard who had returned from outside? Only the Yuan family's master revealed a delighted look. Senior, she is also my beloved daughter, Yuan Ying. Ying, why don't you quickly come over and thank the senior? The Yuan family's master was quite delighted. It wasn't convenient for him to give his daughter any benefits. But if a divine master were to do so, wouldn't his family have anything to say about it? Moreover, the Yuan family didn't have the fortune of being taught by a divine master. The Yuan family's members would probably go crazy with jealousy over such a great fortune. In fact, many of them might even change their attitude and try to curry favor with Yuan Ying. After all, her fate in the family might change for the better. Okay. Yuan Ying was confused. so she kowtowed and thanked the senior clumsily. "Thank you, senior. What is your name? Why didn't you come over?" The Yuan family's master was startled, as he couldn't believe that she could ask a senior's name so directly. Fortunately, the divine master was fond of Yuan Yingying, so he laughed and said, "My name is Long, so you can just call me Old Long." "Oh, Grandpa Long," Yuan Yingying giggled. "Grandpa Long?" The corners of the mouths of the Yuan family's members twitched. Only this silly girl would dare to call a divine master grandpa. Even the corners of Su Yu's mouth couldn't help but twitch. He had just created a fake identity with great difficulty, yet he was being called grandpa by Yuan Yingying. "Hee, you should just focus on your cultivation for now. I will come back and give you some pointers when I have time. Goodbye." As the voice faded away, the Yuan family's members were still in shock, and they couldn't get over it for a long time. When the crowd came back to their senses, their gazes were like sharp swords as they looked at the silly Yuan Yingying. Their gazes were like torches, and it seemed like they wanted to burn her to ashes. They had originally planned to write the 4th chapter, but they had unknowingly reached the 5th. Chapter 743. Yuan Yingying shrunk her neck. She was afraid of being stared at like this, and tears were about to come out of her eyes. "Uncle Su." Yuan Yingying looked left and right before she cast a pleading look at Su Yu. Su Yu opened his eyes. The soles of his feet felt weak, and his body swayed a few times. "Congratulations, second miss, for being able to receive the guidance of a senior expert. Congratulations." Their conversation tore apart the silence in the hall. Only then did everyone regain their senses. The Yuan family's patriarch couldn't help but clap his hands and laugh. "Today is a joyous day for the Yuan family. Yingying, come over and tell us in detail how you all interacted with the senior." Yuan Yingying was confused. She repeated the story blankly. It was basically the same as what Yuan Wanbi had said. However, her narration seemed to carry a lot of weight. Her uncles and elders listened very seriously, not missing the slightest detail. After hearing this, they all looked at Yuan Yingying with complicated gazes. There was disgust from the bottom of his heart, but there were also considerations of benefits. Although not everyone was willing to accept him, no one dared to bully him in public. Now that things have come to this, everyone should understand, right? Yingying has unexpectedly obtained the favor of a divine master, and she has made a great contribution to our Yuan family, which is equivalent to a second-class contribution. In addition to entering the Pill Pond once, she will also be rewarded with 4 7-star treasure crystals and 40 crystal stones. The Yuan family's master was happy for his youngest daughter from the bottom of his heart. The white-haired old man named Pajun opened his mouth, but swallowed his words in the end. "Thank you, father." Yuan Yingying's eyes were filled with delight as she returned to Su Yu's side. She, the second miss who was deliberately ignored, was enough to attract everyone's attention. Only then did someone notice that there was an old man who didn't fit in among the guards. He was wearing the uniform of a guard and had an extraordinary bearing. He had a sage-like demeanor. "May I ask who you are?" The Yuan family's patriarch saw that this person's temperament was not that of an ordinary person, so he did not dare to be negligent. Yuan Yingying hugged Su Yu's arm and answered, "Father, Uncle Su is a wandering old man we met on the road. He's all alone, and he's quite pitiful. That's why I brought him here." "A vagrant?" It didn't look like it. The Yuan family master's eyes were sharp. He shook his head. Rather than calling this young man a vagrant, it was more likely that he was a martial artist in dire straits. The other party didn't seem to have any cultivation, but from the way he stood and the look in his eyes, one could tell that something was up. The Yuan family's patriarch saw confidence and calmness in him. He was definitely not an ordinary vagrant. The master of the Yuan family did not point it out. There were many people in the Blue Mountain Range who had such rough fates. Sigh, Yingying's temperament is still the same as before. The patriarch of the Yuan family sighed lovingly Just let him stay in the Yuan family. The Northern Palace lacks a cleaner, so just stay here with peace of mind. Su Yu cupped his fists at him. Many thanks to the Yuan family's master. All right, all of you are dismissed. Yuan Bai, stay here. The Yuan family master waved his hand. When Yuan Yingying saw that Yuan Wanbi was still kneeling on the ground in a daze, she walked over to her and pulled her up. Elder sister, the senior has left. Quickly get up. Pa. After her palm was slapped away, Yuan Wanbi stood up on her own and turned around. She coldly stared at Yuan Yingying and said, Congratulations, my good little sister. You really hid your strength well, and I truly admire you. Yuan Yingying was stunned. Sister, what did you say? Don't play dumb. A cold sneer appeared in Yuan Wanbi's eyes. How could there be such a coincidence? You just happened to be ostracized, and that senior just happened to appear? It's clearly intentional. It had to be said that this woman's perception was extremely sharp. What's even more coincidental is that the senior targeted me on purpose. He wanted to use me as a stepping stone so that you could rise above me. Yuan Wanbi felt humiliated. Everyone assumed that the Divine Master was doing this for her sake, yet now the Divine Master had personally appeared to correct her, which was tantamount to slapping her in the face. Moreover, the Divine Master would surely disdain to make things difficult for a woman like her, who was a complete stranger to him. So, the only possibility was that her younger sister was using this opportunity to step on her. Elder sister, I didn't do that. Yuan Yingying's eyes were filled with tears as she tried her best to explain herself. You don't need to say anything. I was just a fool, and I really believed that you were the same as you were on the surface. You can't blame anyone for that. Yuan Wanbi snorted coldly. Yuan Yingying still wanted to explain herself, but she was pulled away by Su Yu, who said calmly, Let's go. You and the eldest miss belong to two different worlds, and you will have fewer interactions in the future. Su Yu hated women like Yuan Wanbi from the bottom of his heart. It was obvious that he was a scheming person, and that was why he viewed others the same way. Su Yu wasn't targeting her on purpose, and he just wanted to help Yuan Yingying. In Yuan Wanbi's eyes, Yuan Yingying was using her as a stepping stone to rise above her. You are right. We belong to two different worlds. One is in heaven, while the other is on earth. Yuan Wanbi looked at Su Yu coldly. Su Yu calmly replied, That's right. She's in heaven, while you're on earth. Yuan Wanbi's expression became gloomy as she clenched her teeth. Yuan Yingying was in a daze as she was pulled away. Wanbi, how was your secret trip to the Shangguan family? After the room was empty, the Yuan family's master's eyes flickered with expectation. Yuan Wanbi's expression changed, and delight appeared on her face. Do you still need to ask? Does this mean that the Shangguan family is really willing to keep their promise and form a marriage alliance with our Yuan family? The Yuan family's master was overjoyed. In his early years, when the Yuan family's master was traveling, he had coincidentally saved the heavily injured Shangguan family's master, and the latter had promised him that they could form a marriage alliance if their next generation was of the opposite sex. At first, the Yuan family's master didn't take it seriously, as he felt that he wasn't worthy of the Shangguan family. However, in recent years, the Yuan family's days in the Blue Mountain Range had become more and more difficult, as they were constantly being suppressed by the Elixir Production Alliance. As such, they had no choice but to betroth his daughter, Yuan Yingying, to Zhao Yin in order to ease their relationship and win some time for the Yuan family to recover. The Yuan family's master was anxious, so he decided to give it a try. He ordered his two daughters to take the Shangguan family's master's keepsake and go to the Shangguan family. He didn't have high hopes for it, but Yuan Wanbi brought him some good news. The Shangguan family's young master, Shangguan Yang, has a good impression of me, so he doesn't object to it. Yuan Wanbi's face became flushed as she recalled Shangguan Yang's handsome appearance and dazzling background. The Yuan family's master wore a smile as he spoke in admiration. The Shangguan family's master always keeps his promises. As expected of a great family, he still keeps his promise from 20 years ago in his heart. As he recalled his daughter, Yuan Yingying, a gloomy look appeared on his face as he sighed. Yingying, you are the one that Zhao Yin fancied, and it was Yingying who took the initiative to agree to the marriage on your behalf. You mustn't let Yingying down in the future, as she truly respects and loves you. Everyone knew that the woman who married into the Shangguan family wouldn't have a high status in the family, so she would suffer hardships sooner or later. However, the elixir production alliance was too powerful, so the Yuan family had no choice but to compromise. In the end, Yuan Yingying agreed to it on her own accord, which silenced the elixir production alliance. I know, Yuan Wanbi replied calmly, while remaining calm and collected. The Yuan family's master nodded. Okay, did the Shangguan family say anything else? No. Let's just wait patiently for them to come and ask for our hand in marriage. Yuan Wanbi was looking forward to it. Su Yu went to the storeroom and took a set of servant clothes before he started cleaning the place patiently. At night, Yuan Wanbi came to the storeroom, followed by 2 servants. How is it? You're already so old, so this kind of work isn't easy for you, right? Yuan Wanbi asked as she walked toward him with a faint smile. Su Yu shook his head. I'm still able to carry the broom. Miss, I've troubled you. You didn't come here just to chat with an old man like me, right? Clap, clap. Yuan Wanbi wore a faint smile on her face as she clapped her hands. The servants behind her then brought over a round plate. 100,000 taels of silver. It's enough for you to spend the rest of your life peacefully, Yuan Wanbi said. Su Yu didn't even raise his head as he silently swept the floor. If you have something to say, just say it. Leave the Yuan family, and we won't have anything to do with each other. Yuan Wanbi's expression became ice cold. She wanted to drive him away so that she could create an opportunity for Zhao Yin to attack him. Otherwise, if he stayed in the Yuan family, Zhao Yin wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Even if we stayed in the Yuan family, we won't have anything to do with each other. Su Yu raised his head and calmly said, Eldest miss, if you don't have anything else to say, then I'll take my leave. Yuan Wanbi's gaze became ice cold as she looked at Su Yu's back. Don't be complacent, as I'll make you regret it. Su Yu didn't listen to her, and after resting for a moment, he went back to the storeroom and lay down on the pile of firewood to rest. In fact, his soul had left his body and was wandering around the Yuan family's manor. It's better to find a place to recuperate from my injuries, Su Yu thought to himself. If he wanted to find such information, he would have to go to the Yuan family's elixir production room. After a short while, he found all kinds of elixir recipes, as well as elixir recipes, which were stored in the Yuan family's collection. The place was heavily guarded, and there were at least 10 fairy realm experts guarding it, both in the open and in the dark. There was also an alarm formation, and even a mosquito wouldn't be able to enter it. However, it was a pity that Su Yu was just a soul body, and he was able to pass through the walls and disregard all of the defenses. Su Yu patiently browsed through such a large treasury. Su Yu ignored the elixir production techniques, as he had Tianjizi's mysterious heavenly crafting secret technique. He didn't need to care about the Yuan family's secret techniques. He only cared about the elixir recipes. Raging Flame Powder. Su Yu found one and looked at it. He then shook his head. Its medicinal properties are too strong, and it's suitable for a young and strong body. It's not suitable for me. After a long while, he found another one. Spring Pill? It's also not suitable for recuperating my internal organs. My most important task is to heal my internal energy channels. He spent 2 hours doing this. The Yuan family had many elixir recipes, and there were many elixir recipes for recuperating one's body. However, it was a pity that he didn't find any suitable elixir recipes. Su Yu browsed through all of the elixir recipes on the bookshelf, but he still didn't find any that he liked. It shouldn't be. The Yuan family is a family of elixirs with hundreds of years of history. Their elixir recipes shouldn't be of such a low level. Not only were elixirs for recuperating the body, but even the elixirs related to cultivation were mediocre. At most, they were elixirs of the early stage of the fairy realm. Su Yu squinted his eyes and looked around. All of a sudden, he felt a slight soul fluctuation. It was a fire pool that burned all year round. This was a pool specially used for elixir production, and the flames hadn't been extinguished for hundreds of years. With a thought, Su Yu's soul entered the bottom of the pool. Just as he entered, he discovered that there was another world at the bottom of the fire pool. There was an iron certificate lying flat on a giant rock. The iron certificate was densely engraved with small words. They were all elixir recipes, and they were all elixir recipes of higher levels. The Yuan family had indeed hidden precious elixir recipes in case of any accidents. Pure Yang Vital Return Pill? Su Yu quickly found a high-level elixir recipe for recuperating the body from the iron certificate. It was effective for anyone below the Divine Master Realm, and it was most effective for early-stage fairies. It can nourish the internal energy channels and invigorate the damaged energy channels. Its medicinal properties are mild, and it can be taken continuously. Su Yu's eyes lit up. This was the elixir recipe he needed. Su Yu was very satisfied as he quickly memorized the elixir recipe's ingredients and refining method. Seeing that he had ample time, Su Yu continued flipping through the pages. Fairy Expansion Pill, the elixir that can increase the chances of breaking through to the fairy realm by 30%. Su Yu's eyes lit up. He had the cloud galloping horse, so he didn't have to worry about breaking through to the fairy realm. This elixir's failure rate is extremely high. Its ingredients are complex and precious, so it needs to be refined with caution. After the elixir recipe, there was a note written by the Yuan family to warn their descendants. Extremely high failure rate? Su Yu smiled confidently and read the elixir recipe in detail. After that, Su Yu continued flipping through the pages until he reached the last page. Heart Refining Mortal Dust Liquid. Su Yu furrowed his brows. Although it was called a liquid, it was still a type of elixir. Chapter 744. The word ancient usually represented a subversive meaning. The ancient era was a mysterious and mystical era. Many peerless, almighty experts had appeared, and the world's emperors had contended for supremacy. It was a legendary era. All of the items that had been passed down from that era possessed unimaginable power. Although not all of them were like this, they all possessed a strange, magical power. Su Yu looked at the elixir recipe in front of him attentively. The heart-refining mortal dust liquid can increase one's cultivation, especially for the middle stage of the fairy realm. It can nourish the fairy farmland and condense vital energy. Moreover, long-term consumption can refine one's soul and slowly increase one's soul power. Long-term consumption can increase one's soul power by 30%. There was a small line of words at the end that said, "Note, long-term consumption by soul geniuses will increase its effects." Su Yu's pupils contracted slightly. As it could only help the middle stage of the fairy realm, it could only be considered a high-grade elixir. However, its effect of strengthening one's soul was unheard of. The strength of one's soul determined one's comprehension ability. The stronger one's soul was, the faster one could comprehend cultivation techniques and walk further on the martial path. This was common knowledge in the martial path. Generally speaking, every time one broke through a realm, their soul power would also increase, reaching a corresponding height. However, it was extremely difficult to improve one's soul power on such a foundation. For example, it was extremely difficult for someone at the early stage of the fairy realm to increase their soul power to the middle stage. Even though Su Yu was at the peak of the half-fairy realm, his soul power was only at the early stage of the fairy realm because of the divine nine-dragon cauldron's refinement and the accumulation of the heaven's sun gazing at air technique. It would be almost impossible for an ordinary person to achieve Su Yu's current state. However, the heart-refining mortal dust liquid could increase a person's soul power by 30%. What did this mean? It meant that someone at the early stage of the fairy realm could reach the middle stage of the fairy realm after consuming it for a long time. Such a person would surely be a nature-defying existence in JoJo. What excited Tsuyu even more was that the small line reminded him that the effects would be doubled for soul geniuses. In other words, if Tsuyu was at the early stage of the fairy realm, he could probably reach the late stage of the fairy realm after consuming it for a long time. In such a state, Tsuyu could comprehend all kinds of cultivation techniques. Moreover, he could accelerate time by 200 times. Just thinking about it made Tsuyu's heart beat faster. He suppressed his excitement and memorized the elixir recipe and the refining method. I really didn't expect that the Yuan family still hid such a heaven-defying elixir recipe. Tsuyu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. His gains this night had far exceeded his expectations. Deep into the night, Tsuyu's soul floated away and returned to his body. He had obtained 3 elixir recipes on this trip: the pure Yang True Return Pill, the Fairy Expansion Pill, and the ancient elixir recipe, the heart-refining mortal dust liquid. Tsuyu carefully examined the 3 elixir recipes. He did not recognize any of the ingredients, as they were all spiritual herbs that had never appeared on the continent before. Furthermore, even if he understood the spirit grass, it would still be difficult for him to obtain it. The crystal stones that he had obtained from the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion had already been used up. He had no way of purchasing them, so he had to think of another way. After a long day of traveling, Tsuyu felt slightly tired. He closed his eyes and rested until the next morning. "Uncle Su." Just as he finished washing up, a crisp voice came from outside the door. When he opened the door, he saw Yuan Yingying standing outside with a smile on her face. Her eyes were red, and it seemed like she hadn't slept all night. There was joy from the change of fate, but there was also sadness from her sister misunderstanding her. "Lassie, why did you come here? Why did you look for me?" Tsuyu was quite fond of her, so he spoke kindly to her. Yuan Yingying mysteriously opened her tightly clenched hand and revealed a round, white pill. There were some mysterious patterns on the pill, which seemed like they were moving. However, the elixir's fragrance was extremely intoxicating, and Tsuyu could tell that it was definitely a priceless elixir. "Last night, my father ordered someone to deliver the rewards to me. There are 4 7-stars precious crystals. 1 for me, 1 for you, 1 for my sister, and 1 for my father." Yuan Yingying wore an honest smile on her face. Even though Yuan Wanbi had hurt her the day before, she was still worried about her sister. She was probably trying to use her own methods to get her sister's approval. But it was a pity that it had the opposite effect. "Take it and cultivate. If you consume all 4 of them, you should be able to advance to the 2 crystals half-fairy realm," Tsuyu said. Yuan Yingying was slightly baffled by Tsuyu's ability to see through her cultivation. She shook her head and said, "No, isn't it better for us to cultivate together? Take this one and give it to Uncle Su." Tsuyu couldn't help but laugh. "I'm just an ordinary person, so such a spirit pill is useless to me." After he paused for a moment, Tsuyu said, "Second miss, if you really want to help me, why don't you help me find 2 sets of medicinal ingredients?" Yuan Yingying's eyes lit up as she looked at the ingredients and elixir recipe that Tsuyu had provided. She then said in surprise, "Well, isn't this my family's secret elixir recipe, the Pure Yang Vital Return Pill and the Fairy Expansion Pill? Why does Uncle Su also have it?" Surprise appeared on Tsuyu's face. He had assumed that Yuan Yingying was muddle-headed, but it seemed like that wasn't the case. Tsuyu had disrupted the order of the ingredients in the elixir recipe, and he had even inserted several unrelated ingredients into it. He believed that an ordinary alchemist wouldn't be able to understand it in a short time. Yet this silly girl managed to understand it with just a single glance. "Is that so? It was left behind by an expert when I was wandering around. Does your Yuan family also have it?" Tsuyu asked as he blinked his eyes. Yuan Yingying scratched her head in a daze and muttered in a low voice, Is that so? Fine, I have all of those ingredients. Uncle Sue, please come to my room. Does she really have elixir production ingredients in her room? Sue Yu followed her into her room out of curiosity. Although she wasn't well liked in the family, she still had a proper place to stay. She had a large independent courtyard, which had a martial training room, an elixir production room, a resting room, a living room, a bedroom, a courtyard with mountains and rivers, a pavilion, and a small lake. Yuan Yingying then brought Su Yu into the elixir production room. There were many ingredients and elixir production tools in the room, and the room was filled with the fragrance of elixirs. Judging from the traces left on the room, it seemed like it had been used frequently, and the furnace's fire hadn't been extinguished yet. Did this girl practice elixir production all year round? Our Yuan family's elixir production is only passed down to our direct descendants, so only my father and sister cultivate it. I wanted to help my father and sister, so I practiced it secretly. But it's a pity that I'm too stupid, and even though I wasted many ingredients in the past 2 years, I still didn't manage to make anything. Yuan Yingying pointed at a pile of bottles and jars, which were filled with broken, irregular, and disorderly elixirs. It was probably only the Yuan family's young miss who could practice elixir production without any worries. Just these materials alone were enough to make ordinary forces and tasters shrink back. However, Su Yu was quite startled. He had the mysterious heavenly elixir production technique, and he would occasionally flip through it. He knew that elixir production techniques were the key to the success or failure of elixir production. They were also the most precious inheritance of an alchemist, and they were even more precious than elixir recipes. It could be said that without elixir production techniques, even if one had great talent and resources, they would still be powerless, as they wouldn't even be able to condense the most basic elixir. However, 90% of the elixirs Yuan Yingying had made had reached the level of condensing the elixir. It was just that they weren't perfect. She had almost managed to become an alchemist just by experimenting on her own. As Su Yu looked at Yuan Yingying, he suddenly felt like the Yuan family had made an error in judgment, as they had neglected such a talented alchemist. Why don't you tell your father about it? I believe that he will teach you elixir production techniques in private, Su Yu said. Yuan Yingying bit her lips and shook her head firmly. I can't make things difficult for my father. If those uncles learn about it, they will surely make things difficult for him. I want to be an obedient daughter and not cause any trouble for him. I will only tell him about it after I finish making elixirs. That way, the uncles in the family won't have any objections. Su Yu looked at Yuan Yingying, stroked her head, and sighed inwardly. Even if she really became an alchemist, her uncles would still mock her and ostracize her. She had always assumed that people disliked her because she didn't work hard enough. However, she didn't know that it was just a prejudice, and no matter how hard she worked, it would be useless. You're really a good child. Uncle Sue, how about I make elixirs with you? Su Yu revealed an amiable smile. Yuan Yingying's eyes lit up. Really? That's great. I won't need to make elixirs by myself. Su Yu felt pity for her, as he couldn't help but wonder how much she had suffered in the family. Yet a strange old man, whom she had known for less than 5 days, was able to enter her heart. It seemed like no one in the Yuan family, from her elder sister to the servants, was willing or even dared to pay attention to her. Let's first make the fairy expansion pill, but we only have 3 sets of ingredients, so we must be careful. Yuan Yingying took 3 sets of ingredients from the shelf and gave one to Su Yu. There is earth fire here, and it's the most suitable for people like us, who don't have enough vital energy. Su Yu nodded, then held the ingredients in his hands as he recalled the mysterious Tian elixir manufacturing techniques records. This book had recorded many different elixir manufacturing techniques, all of which had been collected by Tian Jizi in his life. Some of them were created by Tian Jizi himself, while others were created by others. One of them was an elixir manufacturing technique that Tian Jizi had created in the later stages of his life. It was the elixir manufacturing technique that he was most proud of. Extreme limit elixir manufacturing technique. The extreme limit elixir manufacturing technique used a forbidden elixir manufacturing environment to create the best elixir manufacturing technique. The ingredients' purity limit, the flame's temperature limit, and the number of times it could be used to fuse the elixir had created a forbidden elixir manufacturing process. The elixir manufacturing process's three most crucial aspects were all at the extreme limit, and even the slightest mistake would cause the elixir manufacturing process to fail. In such an environment, even a famous elixir manufacturing master wouldn't dare to rashly try it. After all, an elixir that had a 100% success rate would have a 90% failure rate in such an environment. Unless one was a madman, no one would dare to try it. This was a forbidden elixir manufacturing technique, and ordinary people wouldn't dare to use it. However, even though the extreme limit elixir manufacturing technique had a high failure rate, if it succeeded, the elixir's grade would be astonishing. According to the mysterious Tianjizi manufacturing technique, elixirs were divided into 9 grades. The same kind of spirit elixir could be divided into 9 grades. Chapter 745. If a pill could be refined into a boundless spirit pill, it was said that the pill would often undergo a mutation, giving birth to unpredictable and powerful effects. However, in the history of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands, the number of ultimate spirit pills that appeared could be counted on one hand. Even if they did appear, they were common, low-level spirit pills. In the past, Tianjizi had used the extreme restriction pill refinement technique to refine a limitless spiritual pill, causing a sensation for a while. As for the grades of spirit pills, they were divided into elementary, intermediate, and advanced. Those that were effective for early-stage fairies were called low-grade spirit elixirs, such as the Pure Young Vital Return Elixir and the Fairy Expansion Elixir. Those that were effective for middle-stage fairies were called middle-grade spirit elixirs, such as the Heart Refining Mortal Dust Liquid. As for those that were effective for later-stage fairies, they were known as high-grade spirit elixirs. Such elixirs were extremely rare, and there wasn't even a single one in the Blue Mountain Range. As for the elixirs of the Jinlong world, they could only be considered ordinary elixirs and could not even be considered spiritual. The Immortal Expansion Pill is a low-grade medicinal pill. It's a pity that I can't even concoct a first-grade medicinal pill. Big Sister is already capable of concocting a third-grade medicinal pill. She's a genius of the clan. It would be great if I could have such a day. Yuan Yingying was filled with envy. Su Yu thought to himself, if you had elixir-making techniques, you might not be any worse than my sister. Yuan Yingying's talent should be higher than her elder sister's, since she was able to almost refine a grade 1 spirit pill by herself. Yingying, yesterday your master appeared in my dream and taught you an alchemy technique. Do you want to learn it? Su Yu asked suddenly. Yuan Yingying was startled. Huh. Snapping out of his daze, he nodded like a chick pecking at grains. Yes, I want to learn. I want to learn it even in my dreams. Su Yu smiled and passed the extreme limit elixir manufacturing technique to her without missing a single word. Tianjizi had passed away long ago, and his legacy had been severed. Now that it had been passed on to a person with good intentions, it could be considered as an additional hope. If Su Yu were to meet with misfortune one day, his legacy would be destroyed in Su Yu's hands. It was passed on to you by your master, and he asked you to swear that you wouldn't pass it on to a third person, Su Yu said. Yuan Yingying tilted her head and asked, Where are father and sister? It won't work either. Su Yu shook his head. Yuan Yingying bit her lips and said, Fine, even if you beat or kill me, I won't tell anyone about it. She naturally didn't know what kind of incredible inheritance she had received. That was why Su Yu was making elixirs with her. The two of them each held a set of ingredients and started to refine the Immortal Expansion Pill. Extreme Limit Pill making technique had 3 extreme environments: the purity of the ingredients, the temperature of the flames, and the number of times of fusion. The first two were not things that ordinary people could attempt. Only those who had a limited number of fusion attempts might be able to give it a try. Su Yu proceeded according to the alchemy techniques instructions, then proceeded to crush the fairy expansion, pill's 8 ingredients, break its tendons, pluck its beards, remove its dust, and break its water. Su Yu controlled all of the steps meticulously and strictly. Su Yu had never made elixirs before, but the extreme limit elixir manufacturing technique was the work of Tianjizi's life. Tianjizi had infused all kinds of experiences into it. Even though Su Yu was a novice, he could still comprehend it extremely quickly. When everything was ready, Su Yu placed the 8 ingredients into the furnace, according to the order recorded in the elixir recipe. After covering the cauldron, he turned on the earth fire. The device that controlled the earth fire could adjust the size of the flame, but it was only a rough adjustment. The detailed temperature required long-term practice in alchemy, which could not be learned from alchemy. Even though Su Yu had been extremely careful, he was still inexperienced, and as a result, a burnt smell came from the elixir furnace. Su Yu couldn't help but sigh inwardly. People only knew that alchemy was easy, but they didn't know how many failures were involved in it. Even low-grade spirit elixirs had to be refined through countless failures before they could succeed. Moreover, he hadn't even used the extreme limit elixir manufacturing techniques. Otherwise, his failure rate would have been even higher. Su Yu looked at Yuan Yingying, who was attentively adjusting the flame's temperature. A pill's fragrance wafted out of the furnace, and after 2 hours had passed, the whole room was filled with a rich pill's fragrance. It's time to fuse the elixirs. I'm still unable to succeed in this segment. Yuan Yingying was filled with anticipation as she recalled the extreme limit elixir manufacturing techniques' main points. According to the techniques records, just this small elixir fusion segment required one to inject more than 1,000 strands of vital energy. Moreover, one had to pay attention to the amount of vital energy, as even the slightest mistake would cause the elixir to shatter. Yuan Yingying took a deep breath, then shot out 10 strands of vital energy in just 10 breaths' time. Her actions were completely different from her usual clumsy behavior. When she finished, Yuan Yingying's forehead was filled with beads of sweat, and her face was pale. It seemed like she had consumed a great deal of her physical and mental energy. Okay, I've only managed to complete the extreme limit elixir manufacturing techniques primary level in the elixir fusion segment. There are still middle level, late level, and even top level ones. Yuan Yingying wiped the beads of sweat off her face. Her intuition was telling her that she had succeeded in making the elixir. As she was filled with anticipation, she opened the furnace, and an intense pressure surged out of it. Then a light purple elixir flew out of it. Yuan Yingying quickly took out a jade bottle, then used her vital energy to send the elixir into the bottle. When an elixir has just come out of the furnace, its quality is at its most unstable. You mustn't touch it with your hands, and you must quickly send it into a jade container. Only in this way will you be able to preserve its best medicinal properties, Yuan Yingying said. Her 2 big eyes were staring at the elixir, which was rolling around in the jade bottle. Finally, when the elixir stabilized, 2 green veins, which resembled bamboo leaves, appeared on the surface of the elixir. 2 veins. It's a second-grade elixir. Yuan Yingying's mouth was wide open, and she couldn't believe her eyes. Uncle Su, what kind of elixir manufacturing technique did my master teach me? Why is it so amazing? My sister started learning elixir manufacturing when she was 9 years old, and she successfully made a second-grade elixir for the first time when she was 15 years old. She spent 6 years on it. Even though my father was quite talented, he still spent 5 years on it. Yet I managed to reach this level in just a single night. Yuan Yingying couldn't believe her eyes, and she felt like she was dreaming. Su Yu didn't find it strange at all, as if she had only managed to make a first-grade elixir. He would have doubted the authenticity of the mysterious heavenly elixir manufacturing technique. Moreover, Yuan Yingying had only managed to reach the pinnacle of the primary level in the elixir fusion environment. If she could really send a myriad of vital energy into the elixir in an instant and fuse the elixir countless times in an instant, the elixir's quality would surely rise. When he opened his furnace, he found that it was completely charred. There's only one left. Yingying, you should refine it once more. Su Yu took the ingredients and spread them on his right palm. A faint Milky Way's radiance flickered before it disappeared. Yuan Yingying's interest was piqued, and she couldn't help but ask, "Okay, I will do it." Huh. Why do these ingredients seem different? After Yuan Yingying examined them carefully, her face became filled with astonishment. It seems like the 8 kinds of spiritual herbs in them are purer than ordinary spiritual herbs, and they have fewer impurities. What's going on? Su Yu smiled and urged her, "Hurry up and refine them." Okay. Yuan Yingying scratched her head in a daze, then started refining the elixir excitedly. After 2 hours passed, Yuan Yingying's face was pale and her body was shivering. She was exhausted, but she was still in high spirits, and she stared at the furnace without blinking. Thud! The pill furnace opened and a stream of air surged. A deep purple pill soared into the sky. Buzz! An old hand, which was already prepared for this, held a jade bottle and accurately placed the pill inside it. Then it closed the lid. The elixir pills rolled and collided in the jade bottle, making a crisp beeping sound. It was only after 3 breaths had passed that the pill gradually stopped, and the 3 bamboo leaves veins appeared in front of her. A 3rd grade elixir. Yuan Yingying covered her small mouth in shock. She couldn't believe that she had managed to refine a 3rd grade elixir. It's impossible. Anyone who can refine a 3rd grade elixir can already be considered a primary alchemist, including my sister. Our Yuan family has less than 10 primary alchemists. Yuan Yingying was dumbfounded. Without dozens of years of accumulation day after day, wanting to successfully refine a primary grade 3 elixir was practically a fantasy. Su Yu nodded inwardly. This was because he had only purified the ingredients by 50% on purpose. Su Yu had the Milky Way star sand, so he could purify them by 100%, which would allow him to reach the peak state. Once he reached the peak, the elixir would surely become a 4th grade elixir. It was only because he considered Yuan Yingying's current situation that he restrained himself. Moreover, the Yuan family's attitude toward Yuan Yingying could not be considered to be friendly at all. Once a middle-stage alchemist who could refine a 4th grade elixir appeared, the group of stubborn old men wouldn't be happy about it. Moreover, there was still the elixir production alliances spying on them. A middle-stage alchemist would be enough for them to harm or even kill Yuan Yingying. Now, let's try to refine the pure yang vital return pill. Su Yu's gaze was filled with expectation. Yuan Yingying nodded happily. Okay, but we can only gather 2 batches of these ingredients, so each of us can take one. Su Yu nodded. After an hour, a burning sound came from Su Yu's furnace once again. Although he had made some progress in refining it, he was still far from being proficient in it. Yuan Yingying excitedly refined another 3rd grade elixir. It was a 3rd grade vital return pill. Its whole body was dark blue, and it seemed like a human's internal blood channel. It contained an extremely gentle energy. "Can you give this pill to me?" Su Yu asked. Yuan Yingying wiped away the black smoke on her face and revealed a bright smile. "Uncle Su, it was you who taught me alchemy techniques, so this pill is nothing to me." Su Yu replied earnestly, "Yingying, you misunderstood me. It was your master who came to me in my dream, not me." Yuan Yingying shook her head, while wearing a serious look on her face. "Uncle Su, you don't need to deceive me. I know that it was you who helped me. I'm not good-looking, and I was born in a poor family. Only my father doted on me, so how could I suddenly have a divine master's master?" Yuan Yingying's face was filled with loneliness. Chapter 746. She actually knew everything. Su Yu was startled by this. Yuan Yingying, who seemed clumsy, was actually quite intelligent. In fact, she wasn't any weaker than her sister. As he looked at the elixir production room, Su Yu gradually felt relieved. If she was really stupid, how could she have come so far in the path of elixirs? Thank you, Uncle Su, for helping me like this. I'm really happy, as besides my father, there isn't anyone else who cares about me. Thank you, Uncle Su. Yuan Yingying's eyes became moist, and it was unknown whether she felt wronged or grateful. She then threw herself into Su Yu's embrace and started crying loudly. It wasn't easy for a girl who had no one to rely on to endure to this day. Su Yu was startled, and he sighed softly. He stroked her head and said, I said that I would repay you for the meal. This is my promise, and it is what you deserve. People are as precious as they were in the beginning. I hope that you can continue to maintain a kind heart and continue to cultivate your alchemy techniques, Su Yu said. Yuan Yingying, who was lying in Su Yu's embrace, rubbed her head against him. Her heart was filled with warmth and gratitude. However, I also hope that you understand that blindly seeking the approval of others is ultimately futile. Su Yu seemed like a grandfather who was instructing his juniors, and he spoke sincerely and earnestly. People only look up to people with dignity, and if you show weakness and goodwill, they won't acknowledge you. Instead, they will look down on you even more, which will make it more difficult for you to integrate into the Yuan family and gain their acknowledgement. Yuan Yingying seemed to have sensed something. Indeed, no matter how hard she tried, no matter how much she tried, she couldn't change her situation. What should I do then? Yuan Yingying raised her head, her bright eyes sparkling with desire. Become stronger. Su Yu said, regardless of whether it is the path of martial arts or the path of alchemy, as long as it can make you stronger, you should work hard. When you were strong enough to suffocate them and make them look up to you, you didn't have to beg for their approval. They would also beg for your approval. I hope you will keep this in mind. Yuan Yingying seemed to have understood something, but she was also confused. But my talent in martial arts is very ordinary, and my ability in pill concocting isn't enough to convince them. What should I do? Su Yu calmly said, Let me confirm something first. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu swallowed the pure yang vital return pill. As the pill entered his body, warm energy flowed through his meridians. Those withered and constricted meridians actually regained some of their elasticity. Although it was weak, it was undoubtedly much better than before. The stagnant Jinqi could finally flow slowly. Although it was slow, he could still use his spiritual energy. With a thought, Zhang Xian circulated his Jinqi, but it was extremely difficult for him to do so due to the blockage in his meridians. Su Yu also felt like he was being pricked by needles, and it was extremely painful. Forcefully enduring the pain, Su Yu revolved his energy to his eyes. His deep eyes suddenly turned pale white. The mysterious energy penetrated Yuan Yingying's body and pierced her soul. With just one look, Su Yu's pupils contracted slightly. As expected, your soul is different from ordinary people's. Her cultivation was at the 1 crystal half-fairy realm, but her soul was as powerful as a 3 crystals half-fairy realm. If it wasn't for the limitations of his cultivation, he might have been like Su Yu, who possessed a fairy realm soul at the 3 crystals half-fairy realm. Such a powerful soul talent really made Su Yu exclaim in admiration. He was talented, and he had experienced the divine 9-dragon cauldron and the heaven's sun gazing at air to reach where he was today. However, Yuan Yingying had only relied on her talent. It was also because of this that she was able to rely on her soul power to explore the alchemy path by herself. Su Yu looked at her in surprise. He felt like the girl in front of him was a peerless genius who had been placed in the wrong place. If she came from a famous family, then her soul potential would be unearthed, and her achievements in the future would surely be shocking. What's wrong, Uncle Su? Su Yu asked as he blinked his eyes. His gaze was filled with naivety as he was unaware of the terrifying potential hidden within his body. Su Yu shook his head. It's nothing, but I want to teach you a soul secret technique. It will allow you to injure and kill people who are at a higher realm than you. It won't be of much help to your cultivation, but it will allow your power to soar. At the very least, your sister won't be a match for you. Yuan Yingying was overjoyed. Really? I want to learn it. Su Yu nodded. Then, in the secret room, he patiently taught her how to sense souls and how to use them. In the end, he even gave her half of the white-eyed fire-glass frog's soul flame. Now, even an early-stage fairy realm expert wouldn't be able to withstand a single glance from her, let alone a 3 crystals, half-fairy realm expert. His teachings lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. After she finished teaching, Yuan Yingying's aura was restrained, and there was a sharpness hidden in her simple and honest temperament. Thank you, Uncle Su. Yingying will never forget it. Yuan Yingying kowtowed solemnly. Su Yu smiled. This is what you deserve. All right, let's continue making elixirs. I need to make a large number of pure Yang Vital Return pills to recover my internal energy channels, while you need to make some elixirs to increase your cultivation base. After all, there is still half a month before your family's assessment. Yuan Yingying nodded firmly. All right, but then he frowned and said, but we don't have any medicinal herbs. My medicinal herbs are all saved up from my pocket money. Now I don't have any money. The reward of 40 crystal stones will only come in half a month. The corners of Su Yu's mouth twitched. Elixir production was a money-burning business, and it was impossible for the Yuan family to support them in making elixirs. Hence, they could only rely on themselves. As Su Yu looked at the 2 elixirs in his palm, he asked, "What's the market price of the fairy expansion pill in the Blue Mountain Range?" Yuan Yingying's eyes lit up. You're talking about selling pills for money? In the past, Yuan Yingying hadn't even dared to dream of such a thing, but now she was quite tempted by it. The fairy expansion pill is one of the more common low-grade spirit pills, and there is no lack of them in the market. But because of the lack of high-grade elixirs, a first-grade fairy expansion pill can only be sold for 2 crystals, while a second-grade fairy expansion pill can be sold for 9 crystals. A third-grade fairy expansion pill can be sold for at least 40 crystals. She then added, along with the increase in grade, the price of an elixir will increase by several folds. If it was a 4th-grade elixir, its price would be at least 150 crystals. But, apart from my father, only the Elixir Production Alliance's 2 alliance masters are capable of making such an elixir. As such, there isn't any in the market. Su Yu remembered that the purchasing power of crystals in Jiuzhou was quite high. In the past, a high-grade divine weapon had only been sold for 4 or 5 crystals. 150 crystals were enough to buy a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. Okay, I will come back shortly. You should rest for a while, Su Yu said as he changed his clothes. He then jumped over the courtyard's wall and went to the Blue Mountain Range's main street. There was a sea of people everywhere, and it was a bustling and flourishing scene. There were many experts in the martial path, and Su Yu could see half-fairy realm experts wherever he went. In fact, he could even see many fairy realm experts. Since there were so many martial artists here, elixir stores were as numerous as the hairs on a cow. Su Yu avoided the larger elixir stores and looked for a region that had fewer people. After all, a 3rd-grade fairy expansion pill's price couldn't even be sold for a high price in their store. On the other hand, his store lacked a powerful alchemist, so it could only make 2nd-grade spirit elixirs. As such, it had a higher demand for 3rd-grade spirit elixirs. A slightly plump shopkeeper was in the store, and his eyes flickered with a shrewd glint. "Old mister, what do you need?" The shopkeeper examined Su Yu. He didn't look down on him. As Su Yu surveyed his surroundings, he noticed that the store was quite deserted. There weren't many people in the store, and the elixirs it sold were quite ordinary. There wasn't even a single high-grade, 3rd-grade elixir. I don't want to buy them. I want to sell them, Suyu replied briefly. The plump shopkeeper was slightly disappointed when he heard this. After all, there were many martial artists like him who came here to sell elixirs, and their elixir store would occasionally buy some of them. Old mister, I'm afraid that you've come too late. The plump shopkeeper smiled bitterly. Old mister, do you think that my store can still continue operating? As the rent is due at the end of the month, this store will be sublet. Now that we have a discount on our elixirs, you can take this opportunity to buy some. Suyu wore a faint smile. I didn't even look at the display case. So how can I know that I won't buy them? After he spoke, he took out a jade bottle, a second-grade fairy expansion pill. The plump shopkeeper's eyes lit up. I really didn't expect that you were also an alchemist. The plump shopkeeper was slightly startled. After all, an alchemist who could make second-grade spirit elixirs should have a high status in the Blue Mountain Range. At the very least, it wouldn't be a problem for him to get an official position in the Yuan family or the Elixir Production Alliance. So, how could he possibly end up selling elixirs? You misunderstood me, as I'm just selling them for someone else. What do you think? Suyu asked. The plump shopkeeper pondered this matter for a moment, then shook his head. It's really a pity. If it was during normal times, a second-grade fairy expansion pill would surely fetch a high price. But it's a pity that my store is about to close, and if I can't sell it in a short time, I might end up losing it. Old mister, you should look for another store. It could be seen that he was slightly disappointed. The fairy expansion pill was an elixir that could help one advance to the fairy realm, so the higher the grade, the better it would be. As such, second-grade elixirs were quite rare in the market, and they were quite profitable. However, it was a pity that his store's management wasn't good, so he couldn't stock up any more. Then what about this one? Suyu took out another jade bottle. The plump shopkeeper didn't know whether he should laugh or cry. Old mister, it isn't a matter of how many elixirs there are, but I'm really— Before he could finish his words, his pupils contracted, and his voice came to an abrupt end. His small eyes flickered as he stared at the jade bottle, a third-grade spirit elixir. When he just finished speaking, his plump body, which was as nimble as a monkey, jumped out of the counter and rushed toward the store's door, then closed it behind him. He then turned around and cupped his hands in surprise. It's my poor eyesight, and I didn't manage to discern your esteemed status. Please forgive me. Old mister, please follow me to the back hall to have a chat. Suyu chuckled and followed him calmly. He wasn't afraid that the shopkeeper would try to murder him for his wealth. If he was smart, he would surely understand that this was an opportunity for him. In the back hall, the plump shopkeeper served Suyu a top-grade spirit tea and asked, Old mister, may I know where you are working? There were less than 30 primary alchemists in the whole Blue Mountain Range. The Yuan family had 10 of them, while the Elixir Production Alliance had 20 of them. Whenever a new primary alchemist appeared, both sides would fight over them, and they would even fight over them. Chapter 747. Suyu revealed a faint smile as he said, Didn't I say that I'm not an alchemist? I'm just in charge of selling them. Shopkeeper, what do you think? Do you want to buy them? How many do you have? The shopkeeper asked expectantly. Suyu pointed at the elixirs on the table and said, I only have 1 bottle. The shopkeeper's disappointment was obvious, but after he thought about it carefully, he realized that the primary alchemist was probably just trying to make elixirs to sell because he hadn't found a faction to rely on. As such, it was impossible for him to have a large stock of them. However, if we cooperate well, I can sell them for a long time. I can supply them for at least half a month, Suyu said confidently. The shopkeeper's eyes lit up and delight appeared on his face. Fine, I will accept this deal. He then added, In the market, this elixir is sold for 40 crystals, and all great elixir stores don't buy it for more than 35 crystals. If you can promise to supply it for a long time for half a month, I will not only buy it for 40 crystals, but I will also give you a 20% discount on the materials you need. He then added, As for the future supply, a third-grade fairy expansion pill costs 36 crystals. This is a price that you can't get from any of the great elixir stores. Su Yu praised him inwardly. He was really a good businessman. His first third-grade elixir didn't earn him a single cent, so he would surely use it to make a name for himself and attract people's attention. After all, third-grade fairy expansion pills were extremely rare in the market, and even if they appeared, they might not be available for purchase. Hence, only the Yuan family and the Elixir Production Alliance's large stores sold them. Hence, if such a small and remote store sold them, the effects would surely be astonishing. If they managed to achieve the desired effect, the third-grade fairy expansion pills that Su Yu would provide would be sold in a short time. Moreover, he would even be able to raise the price for those who urgently needed it. The benefits he would gain from this trip were 10 times greater than the price he had paid for it. Although he had lost 4 or 5 crystals this time and lost 20% of the materials he needed, he still had an opportunity to make a comeback. Since the elixir store was going to close down anyway, he might as well give it a try. Fine, I will sell this third-grade fairy expansion pill to you for 40 of them. However, I don't need crystals for them. Instead, I will exchange them for these materials. Su Yu threw the list to him. There were many kinds of materials for the fairy expansion pill, as well as the pure yang vital return pill's ingredients. It was extremely difficult to analyze the fairy expansion pill's recipe. The chubby shopkeeper was not surprised. Actually, even if he analyzed the ingredients of the immortal expansion pill, it would be useless. Not only did a pill recipe record the ingredients, but it also recorded the order of refinement, the quantity taken, the processing technique, and so on. It was impossible to infer the pill recipe just by knowing the ingredients. If that was the case, pill recipes would have been worthless a long time ago. All right, I'll get it done right away. Not long after, the shopkeeper handed him a bundle. There were 20 sets of materials for the immortal expansion pill and 20 sets of materials for the pure yang true return pill. 40 crystal stones in exchange for a total of 40 sets of materials. The purchasing power of crystal stones was evident. Farewell. Shopkeeper, please wait for my news. I will definitely come back within 3 days, Su said, then turned around and left. Old mister, there is still this second-grade fairy expansion pill. The plump shopkeeper noticed that Su Yu had left this bottle of pills behind. Su Yu waved his hands without turning his head. Give it to the shopkeeper. It's just a second-grade spirit elixir. Nothing more. The chubby shopkeeper clicked his tongue. A second-grade spirit pill was a top-notch existence for the vast majority of martial artists. As expected of an alchemist, the chubby shopkeeper knew that this old man, who had an air of immortality, was surely a primary alchemist. After they returned to the Yuan family, Su Yu and Yuan Yingying went into secluded cultivation, spending all day making elixirs. There were a total of 40 sets of pills, which would be enough for them to use for a long time. While they were making elixirs, Yuan Wanbi was also cultivating. Eldest Miss, this month-end exam's reward is quite generous. It's rumored that it's a 4th-grade elixir personally made by the family master, and it has a miraculous effect on the early stage of the fairy realm. So this elixir will surely belong to you, Xiaotao said. Yuan Wanbi, who was focusing on her cultivation, said calmly, What does the family's month-end exam count for? My stage is in the Blue Mountain Range, and if I can get the first place in the Blue Mountain Range Great Meet, I will get a place as an outer sanctum disciple of the soul-seizing palace. Once I join the soul-seizing palace, my status will rise and my engagement with the Shangguan family will become more secure. Otherwise, the Shangguan family's opposition to this marriage won't be appeased so easily. The high and mighty Shangguan clan and the small Yuan clan were going to have a marriage alliance. The Shangguan clan would definitely have a lot of internal conflicts. After all, she didn't want to end up like Yuan Yingying after marrying into the Shangguan family. As she thought of this, she asked, What is Yuan Yingying doing? Also, what happened to that old man? Eldest Miss, it seems like they're in a secret room, and they haven't come out for a long time. They're probably trying to make elixirs, Xiao Tao said. Yuan Wanbi sneered when she heard this. Making elixirs? She really doesn't want to give up. She persisted until now. She doesn't even have any alchemy techniques. Yet she still wants to make elixirs. She's really stupid. She then added, Continue observing her, and you must inform me if she makes any strange movements before I marry the Shangguan family. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. During these 3 days, the two of them continued making elixirs crazily. Yuan Yingying was drenched in sweat, but she was still intoxicated by the process. She had never been so happy before, and she was delighted as she looked at the 3rd grade spirit elixirs forming in her hands. During these 3 days, Su Yu also gained a lot. He had been a newbie who couldn't even control flames, but he could now control them and melt the elixir's materials. However, after he melted them, he kept failing to fuse them, as he lacked experience. He had wasted 10 fairy expansion elixir's materials. However, Su Yu's interest in elixir making was piqued. During these 3 days, Yuan Yingying successfully made 10 3rd grade fairy expansion elixirs and 20 pure yang vital return elixirs. The latter elixirs were for Su Yu to heal his internal energy channel, while the former elixirs were for making elixirs. Yuan Yingying slumped against the wall. She was quite delighted, but she still wished to continue. Su Yu swallowed a pure yang vital return elixir, which helped his internal energy channel recover by a great deal. Now his internal energy channel had recovered by 30%, and if he continued consuming 2 elixirs a day, he would be able to fully recover his internal energy channel. Okay, I will go and get some more materials. You don't need to make pure yang vital return elixirs anymore, but you can continue trying to make fairy expansion elixirs. Also, I need to look for some elixirs that can be used for your cultivation, Su Yu said. After several hours had passed, Su Yu, who was wearing a straw cape, walked slowly toward the store, which was surrounded by a sea of people. Even before he reached the store, he could feel that it was different from before. The last time he had come here, the store had been deserted, and there were many martial artists walking around the store. However, they didn't seem to be selling anything, as if they were waiting for something. There were also many martial artists in the vicinity, and they all seemed quite anxious. As for the plump shopkeeper, he didn't have time to deal with this matter, so he just stood at the store's entrance and waited anxiously. Even though he seemed calm, he was actually quite anxious. 3 days had passed, yet the old man still hadn't come. Seeing that the effect of his advertisement was about to disappear, how could he not be anxious? All of a sudden, an old man wearing a straw cape appeared before his eyes, causing his pupils to contract. Even though the old man was hiding himself, his intuition was still telling him that he was the old man. So, out of caution, he didn't expose the old man's identity, and he just walked back to the counter as if nothing had happened. After Su Yu entered the store, he asked calmly, "Shopkeeper, do you have 3rd grade fairy expansion elixirs for sale? I want to reserve some of them, so can we find a quiet place to discuss this?" Reserve elixirs? The martial artists in the store became vigilant, and they all stared at the old man in the straw cape. "Haha, old mister, you came at just the right time. The 3rd grade fairy expansion elixirs will arrive tonight, so you can reserve them. Please follow me." The plump shopkeeper finally relaxed. In the back hall, the plump shopkeeper was overjoyed. "Old mister, you are really a man of your word. You will surely arrive within 3 days. You have really saved me." When he had sold the 3rd grade elixirs, many ruthless people had come to look for him and forcefully reserve them. Some of them had even left behind a deposit. If he didn't receive the spirit elixirs when the time came, he would probably have to flee. In fact, he probably wouldn't even be able to flee, as the store was already being monitored. So, if he tried to flee, he would surely die even faster. 10 pills. Take them. Su Yu threw 10 jade bottles at him. The jade bottles flew all over the table, and the plump shopkeeper's eyes were almost blinded by them. 10 pills? Good, good. It's really good. The plump shopkeeper was overjoyed, and he couldn't help but laugh. I'm finally saved. Sue, you looked at him angrily as he thought to himself, if I didn't waste 10 batches of materials, I would have gotten 23rd grade fairy expansion elixirs. Old mister, do you want to exchange them for crystals or materials this time? The plump shopkeeper looked at Suyu nervously, as if he was looking at a child giving away his wealth. He had already given him 10 third-grade spirit elixirs, which meant that he had already fulfilled his promise. So, even if he didn't provide more in the future, the plump shopkeeper couldn't say anything about it. However, Suyu said calmly, let's follow the same rules as before, but this time, I'll give you a different list. This time, there are only fairy expansion elixirs and spirit elixirs that could help half-fairies increase their cultivation. The plump shopkeeper was overjoyed. According to my previous promise, I will pay 36 crystals for a third-grade fairy expansion elixir, so 10 of them will cost a total of 360 crystals. If I convert them into materials, I will immediately go and get them. The plump shopkeeper was so excited that he trembled with every step he took. After a long time, he finally came back with a spatial ring, which was covered in sweat. Old mister, they are all here. If you have more elixirs in the future, please take care of me. The plump shopkeeper's small store didn't have such a large stock of materials, and he had only managed to gather them by sweeping all of the nearby small and big medicinal stores. In the process, he wasn't cheated by his fellow medicinal stores. However, because he didn't want to treat Suyu shabbily, he clenched his teeth and endured it. Suyu could discern that it wasn't easy for him, so he revealed a faint smile and said, you can set your mind at ease. As long as you can afford them, I will surely give them to you. Farewell. Suyu took inventory of the materials, then waved his sleeves and left. The plump shopkeeper followed him with his gaze until he reached the door. Then, a sinister smile appeared on his face. Ha, little lambs, why don't you just come here to be slaughtered? On this day, the Blue Mountain Range was in an uproar. In a small, remote store, 10 third-grade fairy expansion elixirs were sold in a single go. Every single one of them was sold for more than 45 crystals. Even though many people were cursing them, they were still sold out in just 2 hours.